Welcome back to the Mexico Major. We are heading into our second quarterfinal match now. It is on the other side of the bracket from our first match, so the winner of this will not, in fact, be playing Team Liquid. We are going to be staggering that throughout the day. It will be the last match instead, where the winner of Dark Zero versus Team 1 will be headed into the Team Liquid semifinal. It is a single elimination tournament this time around. Matches are best of 3, except for the grand final, which is a best of 5. And there will be no map advantage, obviously, for any reason, because we don't have a lower bracket. So there you go, just a straight up best of 5. We are going to be Space Station Gaming versus Empire. The winner of this will face the winner of BDS versus Furia. So opportunities here for both an all-Brazilian and all-European semifinal, depending on how things shake out.
If things are sad for North America, if that's our circumstance, and APAC as well. I do want to point out, Liquid, of course, beating out Damwon, Kia. They've secured enough points to make it to SI. They're the first team ever confirmed for the 6th Invitational 2022. Awesome. So congrats to them by making the semifinals. They've locked that down.
That's 2 really high Copa Elite 6 appearances. Obviously, the finals and from Stage 1, the quarterfinals or the semifinals from Stage 2, combined with enough points to be able to make it all the way through to the semis of the 6th Major. That's honestly a pretty big deal. But everybody else in this tournament is still going to be fighting for a lot more. Space Station need as many as they can possibly get. Team Empire with a first place finish in Stage 2 is already kind of a nice buffer, but they have the exact same amount of points technically from Stage 2 as SSG does, so both of them are going to need some pretty substantial help, and they need to make it as far through this bracket as they can.
Well explained, gentlemen. Well, I'm tired of talking about Team Liquid until tomorrow.
Might as well. Yeah.
Sure. I'm not tired of hearing about Space Station Gaming and Team Empire talking about each other, though, which is what we're going to watch right now.
I think SSG is the best NA team. Every player from their team is very skilled. They have great strats. They are very adaptive during the games, and it's going to be a hard game for sure.
Honestly, we are practicing versus them already in this tournament. It will be a really close game because we are practicing different maps. So right now it's all about adaptation during the game.
Empire's not always, they don't always do the best in their region and online, but every time they come to a LAN event, it seems like they just come back fighting how they can, they just somehow power up on LAN. I think it is not a terrible situation for us because I think they play similar to most NA teams, which is more structured and they have a plan coming into every round. It'll be a really good series versus them.
This bracket's set up perfectly. I want to play Empire, I need revenge on them. They've always been a good team, so I'm excited for it.
Well, in my interviews with Space Station Gaming, they were saying that they were actually quite respectful of Empire and thought that they were an extremely dangerous opponent. I'm sure they would rather not be facing them in the quarterfinal here, especially because we have the #1 team from North America and the #1 team from Europe hitting each other in the quarters, not any later in this event, because Empire was in the same group as Liquid, took the 2nd spot underneath them. Now they have to face off against Space Station, who is #1 in their group.
These are the games that get fans riled up. These are the ones that are always the most exciting. And I noticed something in that video. I believe Joystick was the one who said that they'd been practicing with SSG, perhaps in the group stage, and that they were playing different maps. I wonder if they were scrimming Chalet against Space Station.
Ooh.
I'm wondering, because we saw them leave it open in the very last group stage game that Empire needed to win to make it to this bracket. And they didn't go there, but we know that they're probably hiding it. They're probably getting ready to play it. So if they played it already in scrims against Space Station, that's a big deal.
And we did talk at the end of the last map that Empire played, which was versus IG. Oh, they managed to get through groups only playing 2 maps in Consulate and Clubhouse. And so they have successfully hidden the rest of their pool. But if they were primary practice partners, the pool may not be, as you infer, as hidden as Empire might like.
Both teams playing different maps and groups is also a little bit of a hint about what both of them might be trying to bring out in this series. Space Station had Kafe twice, Villa once, and Coast once. Now, the obvious problem here is that they didn't have as many maps that they could have played in groups, so it's a double-edged sword. They not only get to hide more of their maps and don't have to play the same ones over and over again, maybe having different strats because there was one team less in their group to play, but it also means that there simply isn't that much to look at for Team Empire's sake for them to counter-strat against, and this is a very strat-heavy team who's capable of doing that. In fact, both of them, believe it or not, play into their own style of Siege more than they play into their opponents, so the fact that we don't even have similar maps to look at and get kind of a baseline for what either one of them might do in this series is going to make it pretty interesting.
All right, well, let's get into the veto right now, because then we can just analyze the maps that are going to be picked.
All right.
We don't have to suppose.
I bet that my bet is Empire ban Chalet. I don't think they're going to risk it. I think if they do play Chalet, I think if they leave it up, they're going to Spacestation's going to pick it. It'll be Chalet or Kafe for the first ban guaranteed. It's Chalet. Good. So, I mean, Empire showed in the group stage they were willing to play this, but against Spacestation, I just think SSG is way too strong at it. That does leave Kafe to be picked by Spacestation. Of course, that's the obvious choice. Empire probably Coastline? Clubhouse? Okay, oh, Coastline was banned. Okay, sorry, I didn't catch that. Clubhouse, then, I think is a great pick for sure for Empire to take. In there goes Consulate, Oregon versus Villa. I thought Villa would be our decider, but if I'm Team Empire, I think I want Oregon. Oregon is a very good map for them, yes. Little bit shocked that SSG let Oregon slip through as much as they did. Spacestation and Oregon right now, if we get there, are currently on a 5-game losing streak, stretching back to the Stage 2 2020 Major Qualifier. So SSG don't really play that map. I'm shocked they let it get to the final map.
Kafe immediately to me stands out as a map that SSG are doing their best to win. They've already got 2 dubs on it, so there's no reason why that trend can't continue here. But it's Clubhouse for me that is going to be the most interesting. Obviously, like Jesse mentioned, if we get to Oregon, then that's probably where more Spacestation or an NA fans should be concerned for their squad. But Clubhouse is nice because that is Team Empire's bastion historically, as it also is for SSG. The legacy of Clubhouse for both teams has gone back and forth as of late. I think Spacestation have been doing a decent job of avoiding Clubhouse in Stage 2 and for most of the NAL for this year, where we used to refer to it as Dubhouse. They had a fantastic comeback on Clubhouse back at the 6th Invitational 2020 that inevitably led to them winning the entire series in the Grand Finals. But this is just one where both teams, really, really love Club, so that's going to be more interesting than either maps 1 or 3 for me.
If it's two games, do you anticipate an SSG win? And if it's 3, do you anticipate an Empire win?
With Club being so kind of down the middle, I think, for both teams, that's where it's definitely more concerning. I think Kafe should be an SSG map, and if we need Oregon, it would be Empire. But we need like some sort of 8-7 OT, flip a coin randomly, figure out which team is going to win Clubhouse, because that's going to be really close.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it says a lot if Empire are willing to pick it, right? If Empire are wanting to go to Clubhouse.
Against Spacestation, like that's not a coincidence.
No, certainly not. I think Empire are definitely confident in themselves. That's probably, if they were practicing, we're assuming a lot here, but if they were practicing, I assume that's one that they have either gotten a lot of info on against Spacestation, or that they've managed to hide themselves even in those scrims.
Very good. Let's talk about Spacestation Gaming first, because this team you guys are ultra familiar with. You know, top team in the North American League, champions of their region, and they did it in spectacular fashion. Before coming to the Mexico Major, they had not lost a game in 2 months. The one and only game they lost in Stage 2 was to Dark Zero. Then they take a loss here in OT to Furia, so that snaps that streak. They still make it out in the top position in their group, and they do it by playing fundamentals, which is, I would imagine, kind of what you would say is very similar to Empire's play. Like, these are teams that are very, very focused on proper fundamental team play.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like, this is the thing for Spacestation, right? They have been amazing so far in the NAL, and I came to Mexico waving the black and yellow flag. I was like, Spacestation are going to surprise everybody. They need to not be feared. And then I saw the groups. And the groups from Spacestation were not that impressive. I mean, they did make it out first seed, grats to them, but I really thought that they were going to dominate that field, and they had some struggles.
I do think that the fact that they had one less team in their group was also a double-edged sword. It's one less team to prep for, so you can put more of your effort into both Furia and Na'Vi, who were their group mates in Group B, but it also means that you just don't have that ability to flex around and try other options. It's very much like SSG can play into their defaults on maps that they're comfortable with, in this case Kafe, rather than do anything super crazy. They obviously make it out of groups with only 3 wins and 1 loss, and that 1 loss was an 8-7 to Furia, so it was already super close, but it's still means that there were some things that you could have done in groups to exercise more ideas that you just didn't have the chance to do, and now you're in elimination territory against Empire, so the stakes are way higher and you just haven't had enough time to do other things yet.
I think the big thing for me is like Space Station and the NAL had a couple really big positives about them. Their attacks were insane, and it all comes off with the opening pick that they were consistently able to get. Their droning was amazing. Hot and Cold was doing a fantastic job with his nades to get those opening picks. Faults and Rampy were as well, and that meant that SSG had the best attacking win rate out of any team coming into this event at 71%. But it's really dropped. In groups, their attacking win rate was only 56, which is a huge fall off, and their opening pick stat has gone from 60% to the dead even 50%. So that's a big worry.
I'm not super concerned, though, because the North American League, from a competition standpoint, is definitely weaker than not only the rest of other regional leagues in Tier 1, but also in international competition, you're not going to get an XSET or a Beast Coast or
NA
a Disrupt Gaming. NA, by and large, aside from a couple of teams, has some things it needs to figure out, and Space Station were capitalizing off of that, especially with the shutout win that they were able to get as the season went on. It's not the end of the world for SSG. If anything, I'm hoping that because it's a 56% attacking win rate by comparison to their NAL stat, this is where it's supposed to be. You got a lot of like decent preparation against teams in the North American League, but if you're still able to pull out that kind of stat and win most of your games in groups, when you've got a whole bunch of teams from other countries in the same building as you, that's not nearly as bad as you might think.
And to quickly add on to your point, 56% is still 8% above average at this tournament.
There
so
we
that's
go.
still good. That's still a good attacking win rate.
Okay. Let's take a look at a player, because I don't think you can talk about SSG right now without going back to Hot and Cold, the newest member of this lineup who was added and really helped spark this wonderful run that they had in the NAL. So here are his stats for this tournament. As you can see the last map right there and the major totals, just to give you a sense of where he's at. Is he living up to the hype on the international stage so far?
So far, I think so. It's definitely been a slower start than what we probably were hyping SSG up to be, but Hot and Cold is doing exactly what we were continuing to think that he would. I'm actually kind of surprised to see that he's played more Buck overall than any other operator, because he usually has a Sledge as his highest attacking win rate operator. That's usually what he does, but the role is still the same. You're still utilizing all of that destructibility, you're opening up floor holes, you're using map verticality, and he is capable of doing that, but a big reason for why we haven't seen nearly as many of those opening picks come from nades is because he simply hasn't been playing operators consistently throughout groups that have nades at their disposal. But he's still the #1 overall rated player on SSG right now, and so far the entire team's doing a really good job of capitalizing off the impact he provides.
To your point, I will say that he's still been playing some nade operators. Like when he's not on Buck, it's been like Maverick and Sledge mostly, so he is still
good,
rocking a lot of that. And what that's actually allowed the more Buck picks has been somebody like Rampy has been able to pick up a little bit more Sledge. Not every single map, but he's played it so far in groups, and that was his old role back before Hot and Cold joined this team. So I'm liking Rampy with the nades. If they want to keep pushing in that direction, that's fine by me.
Everything Space Station's done in terms of revamping, I think, their overall roles and how everyone plays together, everyone still gels like they're supposed to, even before the Hot and Cold acquisition, but it looks like, to me, everything that they were doing from NAL Stage 2 has made a successful translation to international play.
Okay, enough about Spaceman. It's time to talk about Horseman instead.
All right.
Team Empire coming in as the #1 seed from the European region, and they've been adapting their strategy, becoming more structured due to the ping that they have, but also known for their LAN performances. Now, they weren't able to place top 1 in their group. They took the 2nd seed instead. And not only that, but they played Team Liquid. They lost 7-5. Then they opted into a rematch on the same map of Consulate, lost 7-5 again. So they seem to not have been able to like pull out that win, even with the information that they got. Is this worrying you about Empire, or is Liquid just so much better that that's what's expected?
I mean, you know, talking about Liquid and talking about being able to adapt after maps, I think Liquid just showed how powerful it can be after a map is over to get that insight from your coaches, get that insight from your support staff, and really adapt to the way your opponents are playing. Empire, perhaps that is something that they're lacking a little bit, right? Being able to play the same map against Liquid twice in a row is not probably what people would have gone for, but I do still want to say, I mean, 7-5, 7-5 against Team Liquid, who we are, you know, hyping up as the team to win this whole tournament. Those are impressive results, and I still fully expect that Empire are going to go deep in this tournament, and I mean, those Liquid games don't really concern me.
Historically, Team Empire has always abided by the mantra of play your way. They're
Totally.
never going to do something that feeds into what the other team is doing or playing off of their weakness. Regardless of what opponent they play, they have their style of Siege and they will always take it to a T. The way that Razor's been coaching this team since they've had all of their success in 2019 until now has always followed that mantra. Against a team like SSG, I wonder if that's something that they can still read into relatively well, but Empire do have a lot of success. And the fact that they went back to Consulate against Team Liquid both times isn't a mistake. There were things that they thought they could shore up from their last performance that they simply, I mean, they tried, but it came down to the wire and they weren't able to finish at the very last hurdle. So from an adaptability standpoint for Empire, it might be a little bit concerning, but their playstyle still works out pretty well for them.
I mean, when I talked to Empire, they basically just shut down any question about adaptability, and they were like, no, we play our game only. That is the only game that we play. If there is a mistake, if we are losing, it's because we are executing our own game plan wrong. If we do it right, it is perfect and we will win.
And that's always been Empire's mantra. Even back in the glory days when they were winning the Raleigh Major, this is what Empire did. And I think if you go back to the start of this year, back around stage 1, Empire kind of shifted from that a little bit. It felt like they were trying to work into the, other teams' play styles a little bit more. It felt like they weren't doing a great job playing around their ping that they were forced to suffer online.
That was a problem, yeah.
But in stage 2 and at the 6th Invitational, I think they brought it back to their roots. They got Joystick back into the fragging positions, and they did what they do best. That's playing simple takes, going deep into the bomb site, and making their executes look nice.
And Joystick is still one of the most flexible and noteworthy fraggers overall, and he's a highlight reel, even if so far Shepard and Dan have been two players that we probably want to talk about a little bit more, not even from a fragging point of view, but it's almost like you still need everyone in Empire to unlock Joystick, so to speak.
And speaking of unlocking Joystick, we'll talk about one of the players you mentioned, which is Shepard, who has been kind of the unlikely star of this team throughout the tournament, oftentimes topping the table from the support role when it comes to kills. Why is Shepard doing so well here in Mexico City?
I think Shepard is probably the best support player that has been here at the tournament so far. I think he's been fantastic on the defensive role. His smoke play has been insane to watch. He's got 10 plants throughout the group stage. That's more than anybody else. 4 clutches and a ridiculous 78% cost you see there in the major total. That's an insane stat. That means he's having an impact on 78% of the rounds. Obviously, because he's getting so many clutches and so many plants, that's going to impact the cost. It's going to boost it up. But you really can't deny how much of an impact Shepard is having, especially from the support role.
And also from the group of death as well.
True, yeah.
But, like, the fact that they had that amalgamation of teams all in one group and he's still pulling out a stat line this impressive is nice to give a boost to Empire's confidence despite only getting a second seed because Team Liquid were just doing as well as they were. He's pulling those kind of stats out against Team Liquid in 2 straight Consulate games and no one's batting an eyelash because this is just what Shepard does. So it's nice that Empire have even their support player from the back line being able to pull out those plants and those clutches. He is such a primary reason for why they have any objective execute in the first place.
And, kill death, 59 and 43. I mean, those aren't super stats. Those are real fragging numbers from a support player. That's good.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you guys 4 predictions now because it seems to me that the styles of these teams are more similar than they are different. So a lot of it's going to come down to execution and which team is playing their own game better. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's fair for sure. I think with Spacestation maybe falling off a little bit recently in this group stages, there might be a little bit concern there. This is a tough one though. I really feel like this is going to be the toughest game to predict today. I want to hear your thoughts, Jacob.
It came down to map selection for me. We're beginning on Kafe, which is a nice map for SSG overall, and in this tournament they so far have 2 wins against Na'Vi and Furia, both of which, even though Na'Vi kind of fell off a bit, that's still a really good result on both maps. And then when we get to Clubhouse, it's one that we haven't seen Spacestation play very often, but I do expect that when we see it here, there will be some method of revamping it. Correct me if I'm wrong, one of the last times we saw it was a game against, I think it was DG or somebody, when they had to swap their analyst Luke in as a sub in stage 1, and they could not play to their game. Bosco, Foltz, and Rampy had fantastic performances then, but they still had to deal with the fact that they had a hole in their lineup and it wasn't a permanent 5th player. I do expect that kind of thing can be shored up, and maybe the second era of SSG and Clubhouse can start in this series. So if you had to ask me for predictions, I am going to stick firm with Spacestation Gaming.
I don't disagree with anything you've said. Last time...
You guys just gave me a whole spiel about how this is kind of like an Empire-favored map draft, right? Especially if we go to the 3rd map on Oregon.
Yeah. I think if we get there, for sure.
Okay.
If we need a map 3, that's my concern for Spacestation. I don't think Spacestation is going to allow it to get to a map 3.
Right.
SSG 2-0.
SSG 2-0.
Empire, 3-1 or 2-1. 3-1 would be impressive.
They're going to win so hard they get an extra match.
Yeah. I mean, I really do like the way the Empire's been playing this group stage. I think they've been playing much better than Space Station, and I showed up to this event thinking that Empire were kind of meh. I'm thinking that Space Station Gaming would be in the finals guaranteed. But these group stages have just completely changed my mind. I've really enjoyed watching Empire so far, and I expect them to take this against the Space Boys.
All right.
Monty, what do you think?
I mean, I don't think I have a good read on this at all. If I listen to the points that you make, though, it sounds more Empire favored to me personally.
That's fair.
Thank you.
But I am synthesizing information I am receiving from you. So that is to say, if you are correct in your analysis, then it should be an Empire win. That's what I'm getting.
I'd like to think I'm correct in my analysis. I mean, here's another question, though. Am I allowed to make predictions more with my brain or my heart on the desk?
You can do whatever you want.
This is
But
kind
Jacob-
of this is definitely like a 75%,
Jacob,
like 25% split between heart and brain right now.
don't
All right.
forget, if you get it wrong, I get your laptop.
Wait,
Oh.
that wasn't what? Who said that? Huh?
That's right. He wagered his laptop in the predictions.
No, I
All right,
didn't.
we have Spaceman for Jacob, Horseman for Jesse, and we have some casters who are going to tell us Spaceman or Horseman coming up right now. It's a Terran Kickstart.
Thank you so much, Monty. I've never heard them referred to as Spaceman and Horseman before, but I mean, I guess it's a first time for everything. I've also never heard a death whistle on a desk, so
Right, new things. We're enjoying these experiences. That's all life is about.
yeah. We have to try out new things.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Variety is the spice of life, so change it up every now and then. We originally weren't supposed to cast this matchup, so I'm actually kind of excited because we have not been able to put our voice to Space Station thus far this entire event. They're the only team remaining that we haven't casted yet, so just as a personal point of pride, I'm pretty excited about that one. But I think we're going to have a good match regardless of what teams are involved.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one, Parker. That's for sure. We've got some really great teams here.
I feel like there's a community question coming, Michael.
There is a community. How could you tell, Parker?
I don't know. It's almost like we practice for these things.
It's almost as if we do that. Yeah, like we get paid for it. Who gets the dub? Who will be second in the semifinalists? Who will be the better team at the sixth major? Mexico. That is the question. Go ahead and vote. The community vote.
Needlessly complicated production.
Yeah, I actually
Shame on you for doing that to us. Needlessly complicated. If you have different answers to that, like for example,
Yeah.
who gets the dub? But then the other question is, who is
will
the
be
better
the
team? They could be different answers.
There's also who will be the second semifinalist, which is the same as who gets the dub, but it's a
could be different from the better team. So
true.
of course it's entirely unpredictable because the better team doesn't necessarily always win. But let's get underway with our second matchup of the day. Space Station Gaming representing North America, Empire representing Europe. They will do battle. The very first map that we are going to is Kafe Dostoevsky, the Russian team playing on the Russian map.
Yep.
I'm not saying that there's home field advantage, but maybe there is. Empire is going to be starting on attack, Space Station on defense. That means that SSG gets the very first set of bans, and they will remove Thatcher.
Thatcher, a sensible ban here on Kafe. We've talked about how he's not necessarily an essential ban on certain maps, but here, definitely a good one to get out of the way. Nomad, very same story. Having Nomad in play on Kafe makes rotating very difficult. I have often referred to this specific map, regardless of the matchup, as hell in a cell. And when you can watch those tight flanks with the air jabs, that opens you up to forcing more advantage in the team fights and maintaining your dominance. So Nomad Band, that is going to make it difficult for the attack in those situations. Well, Mai and Mira, last two bans, nothing surprising there.
This, of course, means that Valkyrie is still available.
Which is particularly important because we are playing on Kafe.
Yes. Almost like I said it for a reason.
I didn't know that you said things for reasons. I thought you just babbled endlessly.
Most of what I do is arbitrary.
Yes.
But
I as well fall into that category. We share at the bottom, Parker.
I will say this. I am a bit surprised with the way that the desk framed this particular matchup because, yes, Empire came from the group of death, but they showed some struggles against Invictus.
Yes.
They even showed some struggles against TSM. You know, do I think that Empire is a bad team? No, of course not. But Space Station have looked so strong in their respective region. They dominated the North American League at a level that Empire did not do so in the EUL.
Yes.
Group stages are obviously a mixed bag, but in a best-of-3 Space Station on international events, with the exception of SI, obviously, with Canadian had to come back onto the roster for a short period of time, SSG's looked so strong in best-of-3s. I mean, so is Empire, don't get me wrong.
Right. I mean, I was just about to bring it up. Empire's a good best-of-3 team as well. It's where they made their initial legacy when they started making waves coming out of CIS as one of the newer teams way back in the day. How long ago was that? A year and a half ago? 2 years? It's been a while. Anyway, my point here is both of these teams have very similar stories going into this. I will argue that, from my perspective, recently I've seen SSG being the team that is carrying the momentum forward. They seem more energized. They seem more enthused. The addition of Hot and Cold to this roster of Space Station has, I think, revitalized their presence on the server. And that's not just in this tournament, but also in the NAL, as you mentioned earlier. So that momentum is very relevant in a matchup like this, where you see two teams that, on paper are conceivably very close to each other.
Yeah, I don't think this match is going to be a blowout whatsoever.
No, definitely not. We'll probably get to the third map with this one.
I suspect so. Oregon will send us off if that's the case, but Clubhouse is going to be the difference maker here. Such a traditionally strong map for Empire. We'll see exactly how the map pools turn out because this is a point of focus. Best of ones, your map pool is not as important as it is in a best of three because your weaknesses are usually well covered. When you only have to play one, you tend to go to a map with an even amount between the two teams. In a best of three, you're always going to get a weak map.
It's actually part of the reason why the results through the group stages are not necessarily indicative of what we will see here in the playoffs. And that's very important to always keep in the back of your head. And we've already talked a little bit about that. Let's focus in on this round. So we have a reading, I believe, defense here for SSG, and they also have an upstairs roam. Now, North American upstairs roams in this situation tend to fall back really quickly. I'm not seeing that just yet from SSG. If they don't, on the top floor, retreat early, and that is to say at right about now, then that means that they've learned their lessons and they know that they need to hold this firm. It looks like that is the case. C4 is successful. That's why you ban Valkyrie, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice toss there from Hot and Cold to start things off. Always has been a difference maker for his team. The newest addition to this Empire squad, and with him, the fortunes of the Russian team have continued to increase. So losing Always early. That was a one frag grenade as well that is down. And along with all that soft destruction, a Sledge is going to want to stay above reading in Cocktail so that you can cover that particular angle and continue to hold map control in a way that makes it so the defenders can't retake, especially in a post play.
Worth noting here that as soon as that pick came out, SSG fell back immediately. No hesitation. They now have the man advantage that they were fishing for, and further, the time is starting to dwindle here for Empire.
You hear one of the toxic canisters come out, tossed by Bosco. There's still one left, so he's used one earlier on in the round. Those Rotaro drones from Shepard doing the soft destruction work that is absent now with the Sledge not in play. Joystick gets a mark with the stun as Shepard goes for the plant, but there's nobody. Does anybody know? Rampy, look how close you are. You're going to have to deal with this, but he'll be involved in a bout with Dan and Cypher and Joystick. Everybody getting in on the kills. And even though the first one goes to SSG, that's all they're going to get because it's a lethal execution from Empire to kill every single member of SSG.
So we're going to go back to that roam, Parker, and the fact that SSG retreated after getting the first pick. Conventionally, that makes sense, but you're playing against Empire. And the problem is, as was discussed on the analyst desk by Jesse, if you let Empire set up the way they want to set up, they will win. They will be successful. It doesn't matter how far you put them back. And in that last round, it was only one man down. That is not significant enough to stop the Empire train. So they set up the vertical with only 30 seconds left. That is not a lot of room to work with. They get control over default plant. No one from SSG is anywhere near that plant position. And then vertical control, plant goes down, SSG panic. They walk into those lines that are being covered, and it's a pretty seamless round for Empire.
All told, they had good coverage, and then that upstairs control that we talked about when Always went down and the Sledge wasn't able to hold that, while Joystick did a remarkable job of staying up there in conjunction with Shepard on that Flores. So they've got Dan on the hard breach instead of Shepard. Shepard's going to be doing support work and still going for those plants, and the biggest issue for SSG was that they were never able to retake on the top floor, and Rampy, either just simply not getting enough intel or not getting any calls from his team, was playing by pillars. He could have rotated into reading to stop the plant, but he was shut down by Dan, who was playing above. Ultimately, Empire had a lock on that top floor, and with it, every team knows how challenging it is to retake reading when you don't have control of the floor above. With that said, well, that round's in the books, and Space Station are going to stay on the second floor, but they're going to go to the mine. Or rather, they're going to go downstairs. Apologies on the silhouettes there. They're going to go downstairs to kitchen.
Yeah, it can be hard to tell on Kafe often. I've made that
These
mistake a
two,
lot.
this one bomb site in particular looks very similar from the top-down perspective.
Right. And if you're wondering, it's not
My
that
defense.
it's not that we're looking away when the bomb site is first spawned in.
No, I don't. I don't look at the map at all, actually.
It's that
I cast blindfold.
we do take notes while we do this, and often that's.
I also cast blindfold.
And Parker, he chooses to cast off of sound alone.
Yes.
He's very.
So I'm like a bat.
Yes.
Echolocation.
Exactly. You think that's his hair, but those are actually just really big, fuzzy ears.
Yes, bat ears. Correct.
Yes.
So for this SSG roam right now, they're going to hold some of the map on the second floor. It doesn't look like they've got a single body playing up top on the third floor. They have a rotate into laundry if required, with Houghton playing off of that angle. Empire clearing the top floor quite swiftly. They've only burned a minute so far. It looks like half of the team is presently on drones.
Well, this is your typical Empire take, being very slow, very careful, not assuming anything, and that's one of the things that has made Empire so consistent. But you know what else is consistent? That shotgun. The C4s as well from SSG have been consistently landing. Scyther, though, will get faults inside of reading. So as this action starts to simmer down, Empire find themselves one down in terms of players, and SSG, no more roamers.
Well, Fultz dies, but you've lost joystick, and always not so strong on the entry, not where he needs to be. Gonna leave his team at a small disadvantage now, as that second floor is perfectly in the holds of Empire.
They're going to be able to use this vertical still, though. And look at this Diana clone coming into the freezer. Scyther's going to get a good amount of information from that, knowing where to expect Houghton. Most crucial is, of course, the sledge of always being gone right now. The vertical is lessened, but luckily there are breaches in the pocket of Dan, so he can do some work.
That vertical play is going to be so critical, as it was in the round previously.
Yep.
That we talked about.
Pro tip with breaches, you can use them just as you're seeing from Dan. On the wall, that will get a good chunk of the floor as well, because the breach on the side that is being breached is much, much more explosive.
I don't know if they just took out a gadget with that Rotero drone or not, but Shepard will have to get that diffuser down, as he'll go onto a regular drone now that his utility is used up, or at least used up for now, as he can go right back on it with 3 remaining. Spacestation right now having a numbers advantage. They trail in terms of the round count, but they've got a nice set on the site. But for whatever reason, Hot and Cold decides to play aggressively. He'll swing on the Scyther, and Scyther's been great with that gun so far today. Rampy falls, Shepard's in the site, diffuser going down, but they traded off. And just like that, Shepard realized he's only got Dan to watch. Doing a great job so far, by the way, as Thinking Nade will need to be the hero. He doesn't see it. Dan has been so good through these 2 rounds, and SSG have looked limp on their retakes. Empire's up 2-0.
So this is the problem, Parker, and it's what's often talked about re-Empire. They are obscenely structured. And to the point where if you're leaving yourself vulnerable like that, like Hot and Cold just there, you're not going to get a lot of lenience. You're not going to get a lot of opportunity to use your positioning to your advantage. I mean, even Empire's surprised there. I think we saw Always with his hands up, going, "Hey, what is this? What are we, what are we playing against?" Because that's the second round in a row, I think, where SSG have been caught out of position, and then because they're panicking, they're like, "Oh wait, the plant's going down. The plant spot's been isolated." They start throwing their bodies at it, and Empire is more than ready for that. They've planned for that. That's their whole lives, culminating in that point where you think that you can get past the battle lines of Empire without punishment.
This is a ridiculously early timeout.
Very.
Obviously, things not going according to plan, and Lycan wants to settle the team down as quickly as he can. Given that this is Space Station's map, it does not strike me as well that they have already dropped 2 rounds despite having a lead. And there's been some pretty careless mistakes. Hot and Cold swinging, whether it for intel or to try and take a fight. When you have a numbers advantage, you don't need to play that active desperation. If you're a team that's staring down a 2v4 and you want to make a brazen play like that to try and even the man count, because you know that if you just sit in the site safely, they're going to beat you on a 4v2. Sure, but SSG had the advantage there. There was no reason to forfeit that pick.
The one place where we've seen success so far from SSG is on their roam. Their roams have been good. In fact, both of these defenses, the roam has been good for SSG. They win that equation. Yeah. However, SSG never doubles down on their roam. They either fall back, so they're pulling out halfway, or they die on the roam. Either way, they're not reinvesting into it, so that cannot win you the round, because Empire is still allowed to transfer that into a site setup and an execute. And the thing that we haven't seen from SSG, but could possibly work against Empire, is actually hard covering the plant locations that Empire are trying to isolate. Now, this could be punished by Empire through vertical. It's a very strong chance of that, but or through other means, because Empire are good at that. But it hasn't been tried really by SSG. They're giving up those plant positions. That might be a change that they want to usher in.
Well, we'll see what they can change up right now. Going upstairs to the top floor for Spacestation. Something at some point needs to change because, well, nothing's really working out for them at this point.
And I know just to be clear, we are talking about this very early on. We're only 2 rounds in. But we've seen a layer of consistency here from Empire. And a number of very particular problems for SSG. And since we're in the playoffs, there's going to be a lot left to talk about later on. So we will put our initial thoughts out there.
Yeah, of course. We're not writing either team off just yet. I mean, obviously, we're not going to write off Empire at the current moment because they're up 2-0 and have looked very strong.
Yep.
But the only major kills that have been coming in, as you talked about, are on the roam. If SSG can hold that down, then that's great. But the thing is that this is not necessarily a roam-heavy site. This is a bunker-heavy site. So one of the greatest strengths of Spacestation will be somewhat reduced, given the fact that most players on SSG are all going to be playing tight quarters in and around the bomb site.
So yeah, Rampy is this is pretty much the extent of a roam. Hope you could hear the quotes there on this site. You could do C4s from below, of course, but generally direct confrontation. This is as extended as it gets. The Ionic clone will drop for Scyther, and he'll detect that, yes, indeed, there is a defender inside of the Humidor. He'll fall back, though. It's Rampy playing over by Art now.
There was the castle barricade inside a piano, always on repel. The only one to hold up against this stand, or to withstand the hold from Empire, is Hot and Cold. He'll be playing over by Pixel Spot. He's got a long avenue to retreat if he wants to, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to head down White Stairs and play at the top. For a moment, a fleeting moment, there was a ping to give his position away, but it was unable to be capitalized on by Empire, as they are very wary of a Valkyrie camera that could be potentially scoping them out. It doesn't appear that there is one inside a piano, though.
They do have some really well-placed ones, as we're seeing here, but one thing I want to highlight is actually the fact that Empire has managed to get Cigar, Piano, and Pixel Control without any direct gunfights. That's the first one we'll see, is Thinking Nate attempts to challenge Nubauk, but he will not net any kills off of that.
I think he got the Yana clone that went out.
Yeah.
From Scyther.
Probably what it was.
That's about it. He gives his position away at the same time. 50 seconds left, and Scyther's trying to decide if he wants to be able to burn out a grenade with that laser gate in front of him, or whether a Rotero drone will do just that. They're trapped and cut off right now. As SSG still hold over by White Stairs, a Rotero drone goes out, and they have to get out of the way lest they take some damage. First confrontation happening with 30 seconds left in the round. Joystick's going to be the one to try to do that. Spacestation quadrupled up in the same spot. Hot and Cold goes down, the very first casualty in this round. The perfect timing left. It'll be traded back with Bosco picking up a big double piece, always equalizing into 3v3. Dan bursts into the middle of the site. Bosco goes down. A pinch coming in as Joystick's been dropped as well. Thinking Nate collecting that one. Still patrolling White Stairs. He sees Dan, but he doesn't want to engage. He's only got 5 seconds left. Playing the clock is most important. Rampy down below, but he doesn't have access to a nitro cell. They know where he is, but nobody's able to stop him, so Dan will do Overwatch. Shuts down Thinking Nate on the re-entry. Dan 6-0 right now. Diffuser goes down. Rampy on the retake, takes out Always. Damage done to Dan. Very limited HP as these two will joust with each other. Both exceptionally talented players, either capable of making it work. Rampy trying to poke a fight. Just peeking around the corner now in the back bar store. Dan has an angle, line of sight, and he wins it. Beautiful shot from Dan, who is absolutely unstoppable today. And it's 3-0 for Empire.
Dan is certainly feeling it right there. Actually, he was about 1 or 2 shots for that SMG-11, and I actually got to see on the replay for the final kill cam that those bullets from Rampy did in fact land. There was blood splatter on Dan, but Rampy was already dead at that point. So, man, that is a close one. Could have gone either way, certainly. That initial shotgun blast did force Dan to play a lot more passively. It's the consistency of that shotgun that I referenced earlier. So 3 rounds in a row here for Empire. And here's the thing that's worrisome to me, Parker. Clearly in that last round, SSG said, we need to play safer or more far back or more passive, however you want to put it. And I think based on these last 3 rounds, that is the opposite of what they should be doing, because it has just not been working. And also, now you don't have a tactical timeout to reassess.
Well, the timeout didn't really work out, as you touched upon, and Empire stealing away these 3 rounds on SSG's map. We have seen freak occurrences where the second map, which is Clubhouse, could very easily go in SSG's favor. Teams win each other's maps, and then you hit that reset button and you go to map number 3. I don't know how likely that is right now, as SSG just seems to be playing quite oddly. They're not very strategic, and Empire are taking full advantage of that.
Well, we did talk about how we should expect to see different teams now in the playoffs than what we saw in the group stages.
Yes.
And by that I mean, of course, they're going to play very differently. So early assessment, yeah, we're seeing a very different SSG. Now, it is a dedicated roam here, as you can see. 3 roamers, 2 in the middle, 1 on the top for SSG, leaving just those 2 anchors downstairs. And one of them, I mean, actually, I don't think either of them are on the site itself. It's kind of a, yeah, kind of a weird, you know, I guess a shell kind of defense, but it works. We've seen this one before. If you control VIP and you could control code check and you've opened that red wall, you still technically have site control.
Well, on a more roam-friendly site now, we'll see what exactly SSG can do and whether they can muster up the same skills and same success that they've had before. The usual good guns of SSG have not been finding their mark just yet, and you desperately need them to be better at that because Dan alone is clobbering your team, sitting at 7-0. A Nitro Cell could have opened things up there, but Joystick punishes Hot and Cold on white stairs, looking over towards Reading. It's a kitchen defense, by the way, so there's still some more work to be done by Empire after they've taken control of that top floor.
Oh boy. Okay, so this time, Parker, the roam does not work out for SSG. You win some, you lose some, I suppose, but they're going to fall back with half the round still available to Empire. And half the round available to Empire, compared to other teams, is kind of like the whole round available to Empire.
Empire have definitely been heating up, and they've impressed during the group stage, though like I said, I mean, you can't really take a ton from the group stage, and it's something that you agree upon as well. Almost final minute now of round number 4.
Vertical's coming in, hammers down, breaches out, and this is where things start to get tricky for SSG. The question is, how are they going to handle it? Because last time, they really didn't have anyone in position to stop the plant. Empire realized that, used the vertical to isolate the plant position, and got a really easy plant off on the B bomb chassis.
Things are about to go down inside a freezer, and a toxic canister, the first of which tossed out by Bosco, awaits whoever drops from Empire. Grenade goes down to dispel some of the gadgetry that's sitting by the door. Fultz getting punished by Always as Joystick has made his way down to the freezer now. Rampy will be the one to have the coverage and the cross. Inside of the site looks to be the Yana clone. Is that the real one? No, it isn't. It was Scyther on his gadget, so not just us fooled, but them as well. Rampy doesn't have Bosco to support, as all the focus from Empire is over by Freezer, and now they're in. Always with a kill onto Fultz. The numbers will continue to get worse for Spacestation. They answer back. Rampy's still in this pivotal position. The toxic canister misses. Bosco has none left. So the Diffuser goes down successfully, and the SMG is what Bosco needs to do to take the fight. Punished by Shepard as Rampy is now above and finds himself in a tough spot. Dan, call him the janitor because he's been doing absolute cleanup. It's 4-0 for Empire.
Yeah, Dan is getting an absurd amount of kills at this point in the attacking half of Empire and Kafe. 4-0, Parker. I mean, Empire could drop the ball right now, lose 2 rounds on this half, and still be fine. They've won the attack half, and on Kafe, that's pretty impressive. Now, this is the type of map that does kind of ebb and flow as to what side is favored, but conventionally, typically, historically, it's been the defense. So SSG really struggling here. Last round, we saw the one thing that had been working for SSG stop working. That's the roam. Following that, once again, they did not have any firm control on the plant spot. And you can't really blame them because it's the vertical that's pushing them off that plant spot.
Yes.
So what are you going to do? SSG did present some answers. They put an evil eye deep inside, kitchen. I could see. They opened the wall so we could see over bunker. That's kind of cool. But Empire destroyed that with a Gon 6. They're still trying to go for the VIP roam, but that's not accomplishing anything, which is odd because normally it's much more successful.
If Empire continue to play like this, well, every other team is on notice.
Yeah.
This is vintage Empire. I hate saying that. I hate saying vintage whoever.
OG Empire.
This is vintage Empire.
Peak Empire.
They're playing
the good one.
So well composed.
Yeah.
They're doing similar things. They're winning their gunfights. They never seem to have a blind spot.
That's a big one.
And you talked about it during the operator ban phase. Empire banned out the Nomad.
Yep.
So when Empire are on defense, they're not going to need to worry about it too much.
Oh, yeah.
Which obviously on defense, you tend to have more blind spots than you do on attack.
Yeah.
But Empire are able to play around that ban quite successfully. It's honestly, it's incredibly impressive how tough Empire are.
Yeah, and the real tricky thing is we've seen a number of different flank attempts from SSG. And it's kind of odd because Empire aren't having dedicated flank watches, and yet they're always ready for the flank. Like, I've not seen through this entire map, I have not seen one instance where Empire is, like, failing to hold a flank. They at least get the re, but they almost always just stop the flank dead in its tracks. It's kind of wild. And without a flank watch, just somebody turns around.
I was thinking Nate Hot and Cold have been switching up roles to try and accommodate for whichever site they go on to right now. And, well, this is a reading defense, as we talked about before. We're not going to be led astray by the silhouettes, not this time.
Yeah, we did it.
The roam game that we had hyped up for SSG in those first 2 rounds, which did look good, just started to fall by the wayside. An impact goes out by Thinking Nate. Does he get the Selma? He sure does. Another one's going to go. Does he grab the second? Doesn't sound like it, no. So the sound cues give the position away, but only one panel ends up getting opened up.
Yeah, had to throw it low for that to happen, and
Oh
SSG
my.
getting aggressive. They'll get 2. Rampy with a 3rd. There's a little bit of an answer back there from Dan, but he is too far away to save the rest of his team. Now by Pixel, he's going for a direct challenge. Difficult to fight an SAS defender there. Shotgun and the SMG-11. Dan's going to have to finesse that one. Shepard to assist, and oh, looks like it's a fallback there from Bosco. He gets out of dodge, trying to stay alive for as long as possible and maintain the advantage his team holds.
Dan's going to be in a tough spot here trying to get out of there, obviously maintaining this invincibility streak that he's on. Currently 9-0, an impressive tally. We are 45 seconds left in round number 5, and Dan has yet to die. That is really something remarkable. So they're going to need a big performance out of him, and he's been exceptional in the latter parts of the round, but with 35 seconds left, he and Shepard are going to need to not just find a couple defenders from SSG, but also get into the bomb site. Seems like an impossibility that you'll be able to kill all 4 of them without getting that objective down. But obviously, when Shepard goes to plant, Dan will have to fend against the 4 players from Space Station. A near impossible task with the way that SSG has fallen back and are now clustered around the bomb site. Despite all this, they're still giving it their college try. And Dan jumps down, but no, he's finally been finished off. Fultz gets the trophy that he needs, and Shepard realizes with only 5 seconds left, there's very little he can do. A nice semi-impactless kill, and he's got another for him, but they're not going to give him that very last kill. Despite that, it still gets a little bit too close for comfort for SSG, who finally break their silence and pick up their first round.
1v1 in the dying seconds, and it is the very first, as you mentioned, Parker, for SSG. That does not instill confidence. It went from a 2v4 to a 1v1. I mean, SSG got a little crazy there at the end. They took a lot of risks. I think SSG might just be used to teams that allow those risks to go unwatched, that will be punished by their negligence. But that's not Empire, man. They are not negligent at all, and they've proven that.
It was once again, though, the roam from Space Station that came in so clutch. Space Station obviously read into this because previously their hold upstairs was not as strong as it needed to be at the time. And then we take that top floor, they play aggressively into Empire, and once they got those 2 lead-off kills, they could continue to push into Empire. Because for those that are watching that maybe don't realize this, when somebody dies, you're going to make a call out as to where you died from. When 2 of you die in very quick order, it's very easy for your comms to get absolutely crowded and muddied. So teams will want to take advantage of that. Catch them when they are in absolute disarray. And that's what Space Station did.
Yeah, and it's the first time they've done that, by the way. It's the one problem that they didn't have, or that they, the one thing that they didn't have, I should say, in their previous roams is that they never doubled down. I mentioned that earlier. And finally they do. It's actually the 3rd kill from Rampy as he assists his 2 aggressive players by Piano. That's what's kind of put the final nail in the coffin for Empire in that round. And to follow that up, after they get those initial kills and it's a 4v2, SSG gets passive again, and they almost lose it. I mean, it just goes to show, if you have any kind of opportunity against Empire, to scale those kills, to win the round, you have to seize upon them.
Final defense, by the way, for Spacestation now, as Empire have very firmly been in the driver's seat of this matchup. And it'll be a gamble from Spacestation upstairs in bar cocktail. So 3 bomb sites played by SSG on their defensive stud. Opting not to go over towards mining and dining. Fair enough, not every team does, though we have seen Spacestation play it before.
Not necessary. You can do the other 3 sites as your primary rotation. Now, top floor is tricky here. It's been really bad for SSG because look at this. Empire already in. They've got the control that they want, and there's not a lot of ground to work with for SSG to contend with this take. So they're going to do stuff like that, set up long angles, hope for something to happen, but that's a very difficult shot to hit, even if you're false.
I really do feel like people forget how mechanically gifted Dan is. There's been such a huge amount of talent that's flourished over the last little while that people forget that when Dan was on, Dan was on.
And he's clearly on.
Almost unkillable for, what, 2 straight seasons there. Everybody wanted to talk about joystick, but Dan was off in the start of the show. And now it's up to Shepard, but what happens there is Empire just, this is the field upon which they reap, and Dan in particular gets 2 big kills, but that'll be it for him. Fultz is able to exploit the fact that nobody from Empire was looking in that particular direction. The 2 remaining players from Spacestation now have quite a tough job on their hands as Hot and Cold falls back. The rising tides of Empire will continue to crash against the shores of Spacestation. 45 seconds for Empire to be able to pull this one off, and a nice shot, but it's not enough as the clone goes down. So does Fultz, and nearly a flawless round will seal the first half, and Empire put a stamp on those 6 rounds by taking 5 of them against SSG.
So credit where credit is due. SSG did determine that they thought that the aggressive plays were the correct answer, and I would agree with that. But it was really wonky, Parker. I mean, they started with a flank up red, mistimed with the rest of the push and cigar. The flank up red does not work out in the slightest. Even given that there's no Nomad in play, that's even worse. The aggressive play in cigar nets some kills, but because Dan manages to fish 2 picks out of that to begin with, I mean, that's tricky. That's real tricky. So, 5-1. I think that SSG will do better on attack. No,
Watching you try to come up with something positive to say.
No, but I really do think that now that SSG has the freedom to create their own tempo, they will do better. Because SSG was looking stifled, absolutely, suffocated by Empire. And that makes sense because Empire is the type of force that on attack, you really can't contest them in any of the conventional ways. SSG tried aggression. They tried to be passive. They tried all the things that they had in their repertoire. It didn't work. But now SSG gets to set the tempo. They get to make the decisions. It might make a difference. They might get a few more rounds.
Tail of the tape from the first half, by the way. 5 rounds for Empire, 1 for Space Station. Space Station have used their timeout. There is no second timeout available. They don't change when you switch sides. So Space Station are not able to stop the bleeding by taking another timeout. In terms of site rotation, SSG played 3 of the sites, and they didn't go to was mining and dining. In terms of first bloods, split evenly, 3-3. In terms of kills, if you take the top frag on Empire of Dan and the bottom frag of Shepard and you add them together, they have the same amount of kills as all of Space Station. There were no successful plants going down, so you didn't really have to worry about that. For Empire, or rather there was 1 successful plant that went down, but other than that, there was no hope in hell of Space Station being able to retake that. And there were a number of times where Shepard wasn't able to get the plant down despite being halfway through because his team was too adept at killing everybody on Space Station. That's the first half summed up. SSG desperately trying to kickstart some form of comeback here.
No, you didn't. You did not.
I did not what?
You did not just say kickstart.
Kickstart. It's all about you.
Yes, it is.
They are trying to kickstart something here. They brought the Lion in, thinking it'll be on Hibana as Hard Breach alongside the Maverick of Rampy. First defense for Empire is upstairs on Bar Cocktail.
Well, nothing's happened yet here for SSG. Nothing very practical, nothing that's going to make their take that much easier. They're just kind of chipping away at the utility. They haven't cleared out any of the roamers downstairs. Joystick might be able to influence this. He doesn't have a C4, obviously, because he's playing Jaeger. They also still have Dan to deal with at Pixel. That will be a very difficult play to make. I talked about how that SMG-11 shotgun combo on Pixel is very hard to push. And that is the truth. So Dan has an advantage in every fight he'll take there, and he has not been losing in general.
Yeah. 12-2 is, you want to test your mettle against that? Well, go right ahead.
Have fun.
Well, they've got control of piano on Space Station's side, waiting for someone to swing onto them from that particular angle in Pixel, like you talked about. Scyther might be called in to help out here, but this could be a tough shot. Free fire, oh, he narrowly misses. The Zofia will engage, damage being done to him, but Fultz just simply outmuscles him. And a swing as that spot that you talked about, well, it's no matter for Fultz. An easy job for him and Space Station as they breeze right into that part of the map.
A little bit of hubris there from Empire. The aggressive push on Pixel, completely unnecessary. And it'll net 2 kills for Fultz, who is ready for it. Great diligence for Fultz. And now he continues to hold that white hallway dominantly.
Joystick's the next one, but poor characteristic on his end as he misses his shots. Thinking he's the first one to die from SSG, but Fultz is just walking in large and in charge. Shepard takes him down. His reign of terror is over as both kills now sit on Shepard's shoulder.
Wait a minute.
He's got marks, and he has a nitro cell in hand. It'll go up. Did they dance around it? Yes, it has. Has Shepard pulled trigger just yet?
What?
No. He manages to take out Hot and Cold. It goes off, but it's the wrong target prioritization, so SSG is able to get that diffuser planted, and up the stairs Shepard must descend. Match point awaits Empire if they're successful here, but Shepard has already wasted about 10 seconds as he miscalculates on red stairs. That's where he's going to go. He has no intel and no idea where they are. He's going to be making a ton of noise as he goes to retake. No Nomad on the board, so he doesn't need to worry about that. But there will be sights trained from Space Station in the direction that he goes, and it's a shot to the thigh that ends up being his undoing. Bosco capitalizes, and Space Station picks up round number 2.
Unquestionably the best round we've seen from SSG thus far, though it is mostly, in my opinion, due to the error in judgment we saw from Empire pushing down Whitehall to Pixel, and the lack of a refrag from Dan. We've been talking up Dan all day so far, but look at this right here. He peaks late. I think 3-4 seconds after his teammate dies in the hall. The cover call should have come out way sooner, and he should have had his gun up right as Fultz peaks in the first place. But no, he allows Fultz to change his angle and get centered. That really was a pretty damning situation for Empire, the way it played out. Well done to Fultz, though. Not everyone's going to be successful in that situation. Well done to him. Apart from that, it was pretty routine for SSG. After they got those first 2 picks, now they got serious man advantage. They can just muscle their way into Big Bar. That's exactly what they did.
Well, it's not necessarily a troubling sign for Empire just yet. It's hard to glean exactly what this defensive half is going to look like for them, as we can't really deduce a pattern from a single round. But we are looking at, through the first attack from Space Station, we're looking at an attacker-favored Kafe.
Yeah.
So
we are certainly looking at an attacker-favored Kafe. I don't think it has to do with the map, though. I think it has to do with the nature of the teams.
They've changed up the sites, by the way, with Empire going down to Kitchen. I guess SSG opted for a single hard breacher this time.
Yep.
Thinking Nade, whose woeful performance of 1 and 7, will rely heavily on his utility and not his gunplay through this round. But Rampy doesn't want to deal with that Maverick anymore. Instead, he's brought out the Ying. Other than ADSs, there's nothing to stop that on Empire's side. They don't have Wamai as he was banned by Empire. There's no Warden on the board either. So if you get Candela'd, blinded, and smoked from the Ying, you might be in significant trouble. You have to hope that those yokais spend a considerable amount of time around. The Scyther will be playing on that Echo. Echo makes his debut here between these two teams.
Echo has been a very quietly relevant operator as of late. He's been getting picked up and played by a lot of defensive teams through the whole tournament. Not to the point where it's so obvious that, oh, Echo's back, he's just as relevant as he used to be. No, not quite like that. But he is a situational pick that has been relevant. And that's under-discussed because there was a time after his nerf when he lost his invisibility where he completely lost relevance. Nobody cared about him at all. No one gave him a chance. And now upon giving him a chance, I think players and teams are realizing how useful he can be, especially for that active droning.
Now, Hot and Cold didn't see the silhouette of one of the defenders downstairs. A little bit more patience, and maybe he could have picked up a kill when he put that skeleton key away, but he decides that his interest is elsewhere, and this is a lot of destruction as it's forcing the players from Empire to reposition and think differently about where they want to be.
Note that he does that from the 3rd floor. It's caution in 2 things. 1, if you're not sure if you fully cleared out ground floor 2, or if you don't have flank watch up, and 2, C4s.
He's going to continue to dance around it as he's expended all of that ammunition from the skeleton key, so you best hope that you did a good job of that. Flashes come in, by the way, and one goes off, but the ADS nets the other. Joystick patient, and there go the Candelas as they sprint in, and Joystick, well, you are good and dead. The LMG in the hands of Rampy is just too much for you to do. That opening duel breaking in favor of SSG with a minute to go, but they've still got some work that needs to be done to get to the site.
Yeah, the question is, how are they going to open up that wall? Is there a mute jammer on it? Looks like the Habana's working away with the pellets, and they will detonate. No mute jammer, possibly the vertical got it earlier. Wall open, but there's even a yokai drone in position to stop that push, and the hole is very small.
Look at this. Nobody from Empire in sight right now. All 4 remaining members playing well off-site, holding map control on the east side of the building. So you have to rely on that yokai drone to be doing most of the work, get it in, see where they are, and then have it possibly stop them. Depending on where it is, a yokai drone would be perfect. There's only 20 seconds left, by the way, for Spacestation to pull this one off.
He found
they
it.
break into the site. There goes the yokai drone. Candelas go off as it's a rave in the back of the site. And oh, missed opportunity as Rampy blinds everyone around him. He doesn't see all was there, and he gets flattened for it. And all of a sudden, Empire has the lead. They try to swing onto the diffuser, but thank goodness for Hot and Cold above. Thinking Nade 2 picks up his 2nd kill. Dan on the retake. He's got some marks. Lion will stop them but for now, so their positions are given away. Scyther's on 1 HP. This is going to be extremely difficult, especially since Hot and Cold has not relinquished hold on that top floor. Anybody who walks through the double doors towards the diffuser will be gunned down quite easily. Dan finds the Lion of Bosco. Down he goes, and he's managed to evade the buck above. Continuing to work towards that diffuser slowly but surely. The problem is going to be the time. He's on it, and they know that they're going to try to push it through the main door. He sticks this. Scyther watching. He's getting pushed forward. Down he goes. Hot and Cold is in, and he'll clutch up huge. That's why SSG picked him up. And despite how close it was, Space Station stitched together 2 rounds.
What a dynamic player in Hot and Cold. Many other players in that scenario would have remained on vertical and would have subsequently lost the round for their team. Might have gotten 1 player on the cross if he stayed up top. That was funny, by the way. I just have to point that out. He might have gotten 1 more player on the cross had he stayed upstairs, but he would not have been able to see that diffuser since it was planted so deep in rice, and that rotation from Hot and Cold couldn't have been more perfect in its timing. Beautifully done. Empire now forced to take their tactical timeout. Well, not forced, but they do feel inclined. Based on what we've seen out of SSG over the last 2 rounds, a lot of certainty on their attacking half. I said they look better.
Significantly better.
Way better. They have control. They get to set the tempo.
Same time, by the way, in their defense that Empire is going to call this timeout. It was taken in the second, at the tail end of the 2nd round on SSG's defense. Empire obviously not liking what they saw through those 2 rounds, so you burn the timeout. In this case, you hope that it can settle you down. Spoiler alert, it didn't help SSG all that much. Empire are so close to putting this one away. They're on the precipice of a 1-0 lead, knocking SSG on their heels on SSG's map, and then setting up Clubhouse, which is a historically strong map for both teams, even though the desk did give the nod to Empire in terms of the map pool. Tactical timeout is over, so we'll get back into the matchup. And Empire, obviously with how close it got, think that they can solve the issues that were presented in front of them, as it's a 2nd attempt at that kitchen site on the main floor.
Well, kitchen did look a little bit better. I'm really impressed by Fultz, by the way. I forgot to mention this, but Fultz did prone to shoot the yokai drone, which was under the desk in kitchen. That was an essential function because the plant came down with very little time. And if the yokai drone had been allowed to deny the first plant attempt, I think it would have been an Empire round through and through, because they don't need to panic at that point to force retake. Looks like we've lost something here, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do it for a technical pause. We're going to figure out what's going on, see if we can fix it ASAP. Luckily, it did not happen in the midst of the round. We were still in the prep, so we'll just pick up where we left off with the same site and the same operators, and it should be fine. We just have a little delay.
I really do like the way the stage looks, and having the pictures behind them is quite nice. Obviously, we have our backs to the stage, so we can't turn around and watch it. I do miss the big screen, though, in the middle.
The really massive one that we had like a SI.
I mean, it doesn't even need to be
2019.
one. That doesn't even need to be one screen. I miss being able to just sit back and look at the players and take in the sights. and-
Was it SI 2019 or 2020 where we like turned around on the stage and we had that giant monitor?
That was 2019.
That was 2019, yeah.
That was 2019.
We casted off of the stage for that event.
Alex Remy wanted a big screen, and well,
He got one.
he got one.
Yeah.
So, well, we turn and we look at what's happening right now. It's a tech pause, so technically the coaches can't speak to the team, but the team has extra time to talk through what was just discussed. That is obviously a boon for Team Empire, as they had just spent the last 30 seconds trying to iron out some difficulties that they had experienced. They are 2 rounds away from knocking SSG out on their first map, but with lopsided sides, you know how hard it can be to try to take 2 rounds.
Yeah, this very well could be an overtime map, and at the start, it looked like an absolute blowout for Empire. Let's not kid ourselves. I think most people, after the first half concluded, were pretty definitively saying that this map was over. Empire took it, and I mean, I suspect it probably would have carried forward into a pretty swift 2-0 based on what we were watching. But it's clear that SSG just were not prepared for Empire's attacks, and they didn't have an answer no matter how many times they adapted.
Yeah.
They tried slow, they tried fast, they tried aggro, they tried all the little things on SSG's side. They tried falling back after getting an initial pick, and they only managed 1 defense. And on top of that, it was the type of defense that was really, really close. Could have gone either way type deal.
Well, the story of these teams as fist bumps go out and we look to be getting back into the matchup is that Empire never got to establish a dynasty. They never got to establish the level of dominance that their fellow regional foes of G2
Kind of same story as
were
NIP,
able to
actually.
do. NIP, obviously, any thoughts of a potential dynasty died with NIP's performance in the group stages.
Yeah.
Space Station, unable to secure that same level of dominance, but theirs was obviously hindered by a global pandemic. It would have been fascinating to see how SSG would have done after their triumphant SI 2020 run, to see what would have ended up happening past that. But of course, we didn't have a live event for well over a year, so they were just playing against different regional foes, and that was it.
One of the really sad things, actually, about when the pandemic hit is that North America at the time were just starting to become dominant as a region. And then, I'm sorry, international competition? No more of that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put you all on the bench for a while, see how that figures into your meta. And yeah, NA, they really, they devolved a lot as a region. We saw a lot of terrible North American play the last 6 Invitational. But it's been very different for all the North American teams. Like SSG has had different results than DZ, who've had different results than TSM, and so on and so on. You know, just because they're at the upper echelon of NA doesn't mean that necessarily translates the same to international competition. We've seen that through this major. So it is kind of, you know, this is a battle of the titans, so to speak. But, you know, sometimes I do feel, Parker, that when we say a team has not been able to establish a dynasty, we are inadvertently and unavoidably comparing the team to peak G2. Because that was the only, thinking back now, I mean, it was the only true dynasty, that and EG days. But I don't know if that's quite as much that we ever had in Siege.
I mean, I would argue that the only dynasty that we ever had was G2.
Peak G2 Penta.
I don't think the CTM EG days
I
were
agree.
a dynasty at all.
No, I agree. I completely agree with you. But I'm saying some would make that argument.
Yeah, they'd be wrong.
I would disagree with them.
Yeah, they'd be entirely wrong.
And that's why, you know, that comparison, though, is so extreme. So when we talk about the dynasty of these teams, I mean, these teams are still massive, huge rosters, tons of experience. Just keep in mind the pinch of salt that is, we're comparing them to peak G2.
Obviously, do we think that this particular matchup is the start of a dynasty for either of these teams? No, of course not. But it is good to see Empire back in form.
You know what this is, though? The peak of the vertical play, or the start, the advent of the vertical play for SSG. They're opening up above. They're trying to make something happen here. Empire is on the roam, so the vertical's not actually going to play too much here. They do need to clear out joystick and small before they start hitting that site through bakery. Oh,
he could be contesting right now up against the Capitao of Rampy. I like that Rampy's on this flex pick with his operators, going from Maverick to Ying and now to Capitao. They haven't been able to move Joystick off of this position. Out goes the drone, and he's going to be under fire, but Joystick does not lose those fights. He'll pivot towards the window, and Fultz lets him go by. That's a missed opportunity and a failure to capitalize from SSG. Joystick will be pinned down in his particular position as the Lion encroaches upon him. Crouched around the corner is Fultz. And Joystick is going to wait, but he gets flashed out again. He somehow manages to escape. Joystick is elusive as ever, but a smart play from Hot and Cold to flush him out of the stairs, and down he goes. Teams hit at a 4v4 with 45 seconds remaining in the round. It's anybody's game.
It was very difficult to get that pick onto Joystick, but they did eventually manage it. Could have happened much easier, much earlier. Fultz in the main lobby is going to be massive for his team as he starts creeping up on the roamer inside of VIP and Whiskey. He gets one for free, and almost a second. No, Dan will beat him out, despite having the advantage in that gunfight. Thinking Nate Bosco left the last two, but there's firm control of Kochek as Scyther goes down by the main door. Dan has been hitting his shots. Through this map, he's been absolutely phenomenal, and he's still up, his gun is still alive. Can Thinking Nate and Bosco handle a half HP Dan? Here come the stuns, the EE1D to make these defenders stand still. Always gets the teammate there. Bosco gets one down. It's Dan and Bosco in the 1v1, but time is of the essence, and SSG just won't be able to make it happen. Empire get their first defensive round in match point.
Ultimately falling victim to the clock, Michael. They just were not fast enough. And Bosco, he tried as best as he could, but oh boy, you come so close. That was such a sneaky play by Fultz, I gotta say, and it very nearly worked out, but it's just Empire were better. And they were repositioned this time. Instead of taking from the front like they had before, Spacestation decided that they wanted to approach from the back of Kitchen. And that's exactly where Empire were set up to deal with them. In the previous round, Empire were holding true towards Freezer, towards VIP, and just waiting. And they had Scyther inside of Kochek as well. So, with that said, SSG, they now find themselves staring down match point. There are still 3 rounds available for SSG to push this to overtime. Things look pretty grim.
Top floor here for Empire. This will be their next attempt. Grim is the right word, Parker. I do think, though, that as previously discussed, Spacestation are much more formidable on attack. And I could see more rounds for SSG, especially as we go to the top floor. It has to be conceded that the top floor is one of the more difficult sites to defend lately. And that often when successfully defended, it's almost like it's off of some random chance type deal. You know, like, oh, somebody pushes Pixel wrong and the player at Pixel picks up a 3-piece or something like that and gets aggressive. You know, it's the individual plays, if you will. It's less of the structure, less of the team-oriented stuff. So that means that conventionally the attackers who are allowed to set that tempo usually will be successful here. At least that's what I've been seeing so far.
Yeah, I think we both agree on that point. Operator Roulette for Rampy is still in full swing, but he's reunited with the Ying, who was so crucial when they took Kitchen last time around. Very different bomb site awaits them. This is another one that Empire has not been successful on. Upstairs to Bar Cocktail. Very swiftly entering the building and with tons of moxie. We already see Fultz in, burning utility and trying to open up the wall, taking out that Evil Eye that was positioned, or potentially a bulletproof cam if there's one in play that Scyther's put down. Joystick's put one down as well. Be cool if we could see where every single piece of utility was when pushing a button.
Yeah, that'd be really great, wouldn't it be? Now, this cigar control is huge. Surrogate is going to cost something. SSG has not decided what that thing is yet. They also haven't opened up this top red wall, which makes a retake into Piano very possible. Oh, it's going to be a Skylight take, Parker. That's why. They don't care about Piano. They're going for a direct hit with the Ying.
And that's exactly what a Ying is good for. Paralyze them with the Lion, throw out the Candela so nobody can see you, and then hit the site as quickly as you can and hope that there's nobody from the opponent's team there to greet you. They'll cut off a couple lines of sight with those smokes. Lion goes out. Candela's will as well as Rampy drops in. Fultz leads things off, thinking they'd waste no time to get that fuser down. And SSG are just sweeping right through the site. Get out the brooms. But Joystick has some other ideas. He takes out Hot and Cold. And the current moment, Empire do trail in terms of numbers, and they're still spam pinging away. Scyther, a missed opportunity on Bosco. He had backup with Thinking Day not too far off, and now it falls all on the shoulders of Joystick, who still has some marks, but Rampy pivots, and a war cry echoes from the SSG bench as they manage to stave off defeat in that round.
That right there, Parker, that scream just now from SSG, and I think Rampy in particular, that you can't really see it there on Fultz's face. Or Haughton's. They're the wrong people to be looking at. But this enthusiasm from SSG is why I think that Space Station is one of the better teams in this tournament, because they're carrying that momentum that they had from NAL. They're carrying the momentum that they have from the pickup of Hot and Cold, and they just look enthusiastic whenever they get any semblance of a win. And, well, they certainly did in that last round. That was a beautiful take. Not to overanalyze it, but the smoke placement, the Candela placement, 10 out of 10. And the fact that Empire was so far removed from the site, that caused so many problems for them when the plant's going down with the control play. So you've got those Candelas coming out, and there's actually objective play happening. Often, it's one or the other. Not so there for SSG.
So far throughout this bout, 11 rounds, only 2 successful defenses. Well, 10 rounds technically, we're now in the 11th round. But the attackers so far have been playing it picture perfect. It's the first time that Empire's going to go to a bomb site that isn't Cocktail or Kitchen. They've been unsuccessful on that top floor. SSG, in terms of leadoff kills, are doing a mighty fine job. 6-4 on their entry right now. But despite that, they still trail in terms of round count, which just goes to show you that the overall strategy and the ability for Empire to hang on in the clutch through the mid-round and most importantly, the later portion of the round is so well composed. And that's the patience that we've talked about from Empire many, many times before, is that they commit to something and they do not waver.
It's harder for them to be the ones making the commitment, though, now on defense. And I've brought this point up before when we were discussing SSG, but it's still relevant here for Empire. They now sit on defense. They must address what SSG presents. So that shift is why we're seeing this, well, shift in sway and momentum, if you will. And I'm not sure that it's going to carry forward to the point where we get to OT, but it is very possible.
Very possible what?
That the shift could carry forward until we get to OT.
Your inflection suggests there was more you were going to say.
No, it's possible we get to OT. I mean, I just don't want to say it because I want to see what happens. I don't want to be the one dictating the script here.
It's a very typical setup on the top floor from Empire. The reinforced panels over on the east side of the building by Cocktail means that they'll be hunkered down with ADSs in front of them. Denial on the wall as well, with no Electroclaws in the back pocket of always. They've already been expended. Secondary gadgets, only 1 Nitro cell available. Scyther likely pre-placed that, or did he use it to open up a wall, but is puzzlingly absent. SSG have taken some of that top floor control, but nothing really impactful for the rest of the site as they just drop through that red hatch. As for Fultz, he made his way in over by mining, was it? So they're close to the site, but they've still got to hunt through this top floor. If you want to be able to pull off a reading take, you need to ensure that you have Cocktail in your control, and right now it is being held quite heavily by Empire.
The tone for Empire on defense thus far has been much the same on every single round. Standard defensive setup with a lot of passive hold. SSG is taking full advantage of the free territory that they have been given. We've got players prepped on reading door already. We've got the Ying deep in and on 90 ready to pounce and use those Candelas to great effect, as we've seen Rampy do many times before on this half.
SSG looking to continue their trend line of winning more than losing on attack. They need to go perfect here to provoke overtime. They are very close to being able to pull this one off. The Lions and the Candelas go out, and that will signal the start of the execute, but a smoke expertly tossed will stop Rampy from being able to take up much ground. He'll trudge through it anyway, taking a heap of damage. Dan shuts down Thinking Nade. He gets punished for that. Shepard dropped as Hot and Cold breaks on in. They've swept their way through reading, but right now Always is better, and Joystick has not been removed from his spot. He looks over to the left, and Bosco is left in a 1v3 to try to hold the line for his team. Empire seem all but certain to put this one away with Bosco on such a sliver of HP. This is a thankless task. He'll trudge in, look to the right, gives himself away, but the time just doesn't work. Joystick holds it down, and SSG's map goes to Empire by a score of 7-4.
Well done there to Empire, locking it out before the comeback could happen. And, well, they certainly looked better on the first half. And in the second half, it almost looked like SSG was going to be able to reel that one in, but not quite.
No. An unfortunate result for SSG and not where they want to be moving forward. This now goes to one of the most historically toughest maps for teams against Empire, Clubhouse. And Empire are going to be looking for the knockout punch to send one of the 2 North American teams home on their map. Well, stealing of your opponent's map away is never a bad thing, and Empire looked so calm, cool, and collected throughout that entire matchup.
Yeah, it's actually, you know, we talked about it being old Empire, right? I would call that standard Empire, what you want to expect from them. And I'm glad that we got to see it here. I am a little bit worried, though, for SSG, who didn't give us as much as we were expecting. Frankly, I know they can do better.
Absolutely they can. And they're going to have to wake up because they don't have any other opportunities. This next map could be the difference between whether they stay or whether they go home. That's it. And then you have a coin toss on Oregon as map number 3 between these teams, which I know that you and I are going to want to see. But Clubhouse is going to be a bloodbath between these 2 teams. I give Empire the nod now to win the whole thing with the results that we saw. Not just that they're up by 1 map, Michael, but the way that they played that map.
Yeah, it was so rock solid, Parker. But that's it for me and you for now. We're going to throw over to the desk and hear what they have to say.
Thank you, gentlemen. 1-0 is the score here as Empire will take the first map of Kafe. You know, they chose the home map of the Russians, Kafe. You don't invade Russia. That never works. That never works, especially from the West. That's not good.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. I don't think it was a bad map choice in the context of Siege. They should have won that. This was SSG's gimme map, and they just absolutely fell flat, especially on their defenses.
Yeah, the fact that they only had 1 successful defense, and it came from doing nothing but disrupting the already potent top floor control that we saw Empire use so effectively, especially on those reading attacks. That's the only good thing that SSG had going for them when they were on defense, and at that point, with a 5-1 half, I think it already was too far gone. If it was 4-2, might have been a different story, but there's not enough leeway for SSG to attempt a comeback.
Did they disappoint you? The Spacestation gamers?
It did.
I mean, I think this was kind of just proof that North America kind of, you know, you can dominate NA.
Don't say it.
I'll give me another map, and then I'm going to say it.
That's fine.
I won't say it now.
But don't say it now because we do have a reputation to uphold.
I'm going to beat him to saying it, which is, you know, the narrative of every esport.
It really is.
The narrative of every esport is one team, NA team, looks super good domestically. Everybody overhypes them. They come to an international event. And
we were good once.
Like
we
that.
were.
Like that.
We've got world champions, you know, for the most part. But every major winner, international major winner, not counting invite, they've always been won by Europeans. Yeah. G2 in Paris. It was Empire in Raleigh 2 years ago. Is it going to be Empire again? I don't know. Might be a little bit too soon.
Yeah, interesting. I think you guys did say that Clubhouse was going to be a little bit more even, but do you have any other overarching thoughts, Jacob, about what we saw between these 2 teams?
That attacking half from Team Empire was one of the single most structured things ever, but there are some things that you can notice similarity-wise in the way that they were taking site by site. It felt like it was very formulaic, and SSG should have been able to read into that. They just needed a little bit more time because they only had 1 defensive win, and that's kind of where everything turned cataclysmic for SSG. I did think the fact that they recognized errors early on was a nice sign initially. They took their tack time out after just 2 rounds, which, knowing how SSG plays usually in the NAL, Lycan doesn't call tag timeouts nearly that soon. He's done that in very short order for all of the 6 major Mexico cities so far, and it's made it seem like SSG can identify these issues, but they weren't able to scrape any other rounds back against Empire until it was essentially too late. So the mental seemed like it was a little bit out of place here.
Well, an opportunity to reset with a break after the match and try and get things under control. As you can see, Dan was truly the hero of that last match. We did mention him coming into this game as one of the players who's really stepped up alongside Shepard for this major, and he continues to roll.
He is a post-plant defender machine. Whenever someone's going for a plant, he has every angle locked down. Every time we saw someone attempting to plant, in most cases it was Shepard, he was always there. No one can get past Dan as a plant is being activated. And it looks like that trend's only going to get better because we didn't have to talk about Joystick. It was all the Dan show because of the situations that Empire were in on attack, and it just seemed like it continued here.
All right, let's go to Jesse, who's going to break down round 6 for us over at the Telestrator.
Thank you, Monty. Professor Chick back here with the Telestration device, and I want to break down round 6 for you because this is the roam game that I think really Space Station Gaming has been lacking recently. So I want to focus on Rampy here. He's going to be coming up for a flank up these red stairs to try to pressure Empire. We're going to go to first person, and then once we get into here, once we get to this, we're going to slowly play this one and watch how this flank comes out. Watch at the same time, there's going to be a push coming from up above. Here we go with the play. Rampy's sprinting right now. This is a big problem. He's sprinting in. He's going to get shut down. If you see that 3v5, we go top down. We'll see in a moment if we press play here. They're actually struggling up on this top floor, all of these gunfights. There was pressure from Space Station to come up on this above floor as well. So it was a bit of a combined push. The coordination was there, but the timing was a little bit off. Because the timing was off, Rampy was forced to sprint up those stairs. He got hurt, he got caught out, and also Dan's kind of amazing. So this was one of those rounds that I really thought Space Station Gaming should have had a better pinch up. The play was great, but the coordination just wasn't there. And this is what we weren't seeing back in the NAL. But in Mexico here, it's been a problem for Space Station, and it continued to be one throughout this map.
I wanted to hold that for another like 5 seconds.
For about as long as you possibly could. Yeah, I feel that.
All right, well, very nicely done. We do have round 8 as well, which shows some positives here for Space Station Gaming. What did you take away from this kind of post-plant situation? And is it something that Space Station can take in successfully into our second map?
That's kind of what I'm hoping, because this round in particular is a showcase of what happens even when something doesn't go the way that you're looking for. I don't believe it's this round in particular. I think we're looking at round 8. But this is an example where Rampy gets shut down after already having a very successful Ying entry. But the vertical control is perfect for both Hot and Cold and Thinking Nade. Playing from above means that it's easy for Empire to now need to completely shift their entire defensive game plan around. The coordination here from Empire is actually really, really good though, because both Dan and Scyther understand where the plant's going down with plenty of time to go for a defuse, and they're both going to go straight in for it. Dan's going to kill Bosco and Harry Potter right under red stairs, and it means the two of them can now worry about where the diffuser is. They know where the vertical control is coming from, but they're going to prioritize prep. Once they've got this down, Dan's going for defuse. Scyther comes straight in. It's going off. Scyther has the kill, but Hot and Cold actually gets off of his own vertical cross to ensure that the cover is perfect for SSG. The reason that round is pivotal, Rampy has perfect Ying entry, finds one kill behind Bakery, and then completely misses one player hiding behind the bomb chassis. We call Siege a horror game sometimes. That clip is a pretty good example as to why. But even though that doesn't work, everything else SSG had over the course of that round was perfectly set up to make sure that once the diffuser went down, there was no way they could lose the round. That's it.
That's it.
That's all.
Jesse has nothing to add.
No,
so
I agree.
I'll ask him instead, because he wasn't part of our Dan conversation earlier while he was heading to the Telestrator. We do have some Dan highlights. So tell me the legend of Dan here at the 6 Major and why he's been performing so well considering his past.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Dan coming into this major really was kind of a bit in Joystick's shadow, right? I mean, Joystick was the big performer inside of the EUL, but Dan got to play a little bit more of those aggressive roles. We saw at the start of the group stage, Joystick move a little bit more on sort of the Jackal role, sort of that roam clear position. And Dan has been able to pick up the Zofia, the Ashe, the Yana, whatever he wants. And with these tools, I feel he's done such an amazing job. Funnily enough, playing Ace for a lot of his big plays in that game. So, you know, maybe it's not all about the fragging operators that he needs. But I feel Dan has been put into a position coming into this major to get so many more kills and have such a flashy performance on the scoreboard. And that's what he's done.
And if you go back and look at that highlight reel, watch how many times Dan was getting kills as somebody from Empire was planting. Someone on SSG hears the plant is going down. Dan is in perfect position to shut it down from the most optimal angle on the map to make sure that whoever is flanking as soon as he hears the diffuser cue isn't capable of shutting it down. He's always there. He's always present whenever a plant is being attempted, and in most cases, Empire got plenty of those plants down.
All right, well, it's do or die time for Space Station Gaming. They may be a 6 Invitational winner, but they are on the verge of elimination here at the Mexico Major. So I'm going to ask you guys very fast the thing that they need to switch on or improve for this next game. Jacob, go.
little bit difficult. I would have liked to see more drone work. I felt like on their attacks, it was definitely more lackluster. We didn't see enough of their attacks to know if that was the primary issue, but still, you're playing Clubhouse, intel game is crucial.
I think the roam's got to be a little bit better, especially on those openers. Rampy particularly needs to be able to get those and coordinate a little bit better with this team.
All right, thank you for being pithy, gentlemen. Quick break, then we're back to the casters and the game.
What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving community? Join us on this third episode of I Call Next as we discover how to create inspiring content and hype up an entire gaming scene. PayPal. Press play.
Won't you listen? Listen to your heart. Won't you listen? Listen to your heart. Have you got the love, the love, the love? Have you got the love, the love, the love? Have you got the love, the love, the love? Have you got the love, the love, the love? Have you got the love, the love, the love? Have you got the love, the love, the love?
Welcome back, everybody. It's time for our second map between these two teams that we just witnessed Empire go out to a 1-0 lead over Space Station. It's time to go to Empire's map. So the razor's edge for Space Station is one map could decide their fate between staying in Mexico or going home earlier than I think they probably expect to.
Yeah, and it's quite tricky for SSG right now. And during that break, which was very important. I actually did see SSG huddled up on the stage, and they were having a very intense conversation about what they want to do moving forward. Now, just as a reminder, we did have a community poll, and the results are in. 55% of you thought that SSG would take this one, and 45% bet on Empire. So far, you're a little off there, but we're not done with this best of 3. Potentially still 2 maps left to play. Going into this next one, it's going to be Clubhouse, and yeah, I hope that the conversations had by SSG on the stage were enough for them to reset their focus.
Yeah, they definitely needed to warm up. I think that was the big thing here, was that
It is quite cold
they
in here.
got caught.
You should see his face right now. I'm just sorry that he's not on camera.
I'm Caliber Jacobs. I didn't get the laptop face.
Yeah, that one. That's perfect. So they need to warm up.
Also, I'm so glad they did that. We actually talked about that in a staff meeting.
Oh, yeah?
Where, yeah, because there was that whole like, oh, he's going to get a laptop finally. You know, that's like this running gag comes to an end. And I said, how funny would it be if instead of giving it to him, they just gave one to Monty?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was behind that idea.
And they did it. I'm not taking credit for it, but I'm very glad that there were other people that were clever enough to think of such a thing, because
Very funny.
genuinely very funny. But anyway, I meant not in terms of temperature, Michael. You goon.
Yes, I know.
I was talking that it took them some time to warm up to get into the match because they were not particularly competitive. They got caught flat-footed, and they managed to put some impressive string of rounds together, but it was just too late. Empire had a sizable lead. Their war chest had been built up significantly. So now you go to a historically good map for Empire, and it's not a bad map for Space Station either. So both of these teams have had recent success here. The operator bans are going to play a massive effect. We saw Capital come out just one time, maybe 2 times, if memory serves me correctly, on Kafe when we just witnessed it. Empire doesn't want to deal with it. Removing Capital first. Thatchy boy, old reliable Thatchy boy.
Thatchy boy.
He's all gone. As for defender bans on a map like Clubhouse, Mira tends to go. Wamai and Valkyrie could very easily get thrown in there.
Called it.
There goes Wamai, banned out by Empire on the previous map. And who's the last ban going to be from Empire?
Well, let's see. Matter of time, probably Valkyrie, I would imagine. There it is. 2 for 2, Parker. High five. There you go. So, interesting bans here. The Capital ban, I actually like a lot because we did see a lot of Capital from SSG. Rampy, I think, was the one flexing onto that. And he did use the Capital to solid effect. Cool to get rid of that tool on this map because Capital as an operator is vastly superior on Clubhouse when compared to Kafe. Both maps he's pretty good on, but there's a lot more you can do with him here.
Empire starting on defense on a traditionally defender-sided map. Another opportunity. Another opportunity for them to get another nice lead, a nest egg, if you want to call it.
They started on attack. The thing is that Kafe is so weird, right?
Right.
And starting on attack, I really did think that Empire was going to go down early in the first half, but we didn't see that. Now they're starting on defense, so the conventional wisdom is that they will go up in 4-2 or something like that on Clubhouse, which means, of course, that we're going to get the opposite. That's just how it works. It's them are the rules.
Conventional wisdom does not exist.
And not anymore.
No.
You know, we've had that at a lot of events, though. Have you noticed that? We always come out of league play, and we build up these expectations based on league play, and then we see the results out of any kind of event, a major, a Six Invitational, what have you, and it's always the inverse of what we expected. It's always like, oh, well, didn't see that coming.
I didn't have any real expectations going into this matchup. I just assumed that it was going to be a fun competition between 2 evenly matched teams whose playstyles tend to be quite similar. And I think the first map, being as close as it was, despite it being a 7-4, was only 1 round away from going through all of regulation. I gotta say, it's been an exciting one. I want to see sparks and I want to see fireworks here on Clubhouse. I'm very hopeful that we get to this point. By the way, it's a Gym Master defense up top. This is not unorthodox, but a lot of teams keep this as the tertiary bomb site.
Oh.
Breach gets opened up inside of CCTV, and Scyther will play off of it, but they're gone.
he'll play with fire is what he's playing with.
Correct.
It was very dangerous, that position, but as you mentioned, Parker, there doesn't appear to be anyone holding him there, so he'll just stay. Meanwhile, Jacuzzi getting opened up by Bosco. And there will be some follow-up with some soft destruction because Bosco's going for the trick. There you go. Wall tricked. Oh, C4 from Shepard, but he doesn't toss it. Dan will get the lead-off kill. Down goes Fultz, and there's the toss. A little belated, but eliminated the Jackal regardless.
Almighty fine stuff there from Empire to start things off and pick up 2 very big kills on both Houghton and Fultz. That's some utility operators that are down for the count. Soft destruction for the Ash and even for the secondary shotgun of Hot and Cold as well. It seems like they're going to be sitting on flank drones that have been situated somewhere on the map by SSG. Leaves Empire now in a position where they could be spotted quite readily, but the firepower from Space Station is significantly weakened. Rampy down below, grenade in hand now. He'll head over towards the bottom of the main stairs, but he picks the wrong part of it. He's going to have to tussle with Dan above. Rampy sees it. He slowly peeks around the corner. Another grenade primed and ready, but Dan doesn't want to engage in that. Somehow he manages to get through the breach up top into the safety of the bomb site, but no way! Joystick, the ballsiest man in the server, just swings onto it, and down goes Bosco.
I'll be frank, Parker. SSG are playing themselves right now. They're leaving a lot of opportunities on the table. We're only 1 round into this, and already I am getting absolutely terrible vibes from the SSG attacks. Nice shot there from Rampy, but Joystick is there to get the re. Thinking nade now on about 15 HP. Yeah, he's got to find 4 full HP targets. Not going to happen. He won't even get Joystick.
Oh, a drop shot.
Turned on there.
The drop shotty Bugatti.
And it worked out for Joystick very well. So Empire take the first round on Jim. They go to, as you mentioned, typically the tertiary bomb site, and they get the win. And
I still can't believe that.
No, but also the cross, too. Like, I think Joystick did that because Dan managed to get by 2 people on that breach, and Joystick's thinking to himself, oh, well, if it's that free, I'll just go.
Well, not exactly the start that Space Station wanted here on their map, but they will be trying to roll a ball up the hill, given the way that Clubhouse plays out. Lots of avenues for defenders to retake. Plenty of ways that defenders can hold map control and roam, or can just simply bunker down in the site too, if absolutely required. So
yeah.
For that, you have all of those advantages. It's also a large map, which means that for attackers, you have to spend a lot of time clearing it, and then you have to place your utility appropriately. If you want to dress for the job you have, by the way, or if you want to dress for the job you want, you can do that with the Space Station uniform that's available in the game on Zero.
Really nice one.
Old Sam Fisher.
And it's also a great way to support the team directly. So if you want to support Space Station, or Empire for that matter, or any team that has the skins in the game, you can purchase their stuff, and it is a great way to help these teams, these orgs, and these players out. So 1 round on the board, but Parker, it was a bit of a statement, and that's the worrisome thing here for Space Station, who are just coming off of a loss in the first map of this best of 3. To have a round like that, that's going to be discouraging. And I mentioned it earlier, the lead into the broadcast, I didn't fully flesh out my thought here, but Space Station, as soon as they lost map number 1, were up on their stage, just conversing. And they didn't leave that huddle until we were just about to start. They were deep in thought. They've definitely analyzed and gone over what they did wrong in the last map. I mean, and Empire stayed seated the whole time.
Dan down below. Oh, nice pivot from Hot and Cold as he buries Dan on the stairs. He'd snuck in by only breaking 2 of those panels on the door.
Great pick to start things off.
Excellent pick, and with the way that Dan's been playing today, there is no other target in this lobby that I would be more happy with taking out right as the round began.
Absolutely.
So some big breathing room for Space Station already established.
Yeah, and now they find themselves in a position where they can just slowly, methodically execute. But Joystick's trying to disrupt that. He will get the flank watching drone, but it's going to fall back.
This is a very default defense by Empire. They're all hunkered down in the bomb sites. The only one who appears to be missing is Scyther, who's over by escape tunnel or dirt tunnel. As for the rest of Empire, Standard stuff. They're not going to hold any map control besides the site. They don't need to. As we mentioned, this is such a big map that Space Station don't necessarily have all the intel on the position of Empire's locations. They could think that there's people upstairs for all we know, and if SSG doesn't thoroughly drone that out, they could be punished for it in other rounds. But it seems like they have a good understanding now as Hot and Cold has taken that top floor.
I mean, who can blame them for playing like standard, right? It's been working so well for Empire as of late. And it's that little extra flavor, that zest that Empire puts into all of their plays. For example, Joystick making that aggressive play on main stairs. Yeah, it's pretty standard. He's looking to fish for a pick to read. His teammate died earlier. Makes total sense. He gets spotted by the drone, and then he starts going back, you know, safe. Empire. They do what they can, and if they think there's too much risk, they play it safe, and look at the time right now.
Yep.
Even though there's a man advantage for SSG, they might still lose this.
Well, Empire's going to be put in a box right now as they'll have to swing onto what appears to be a kitchen drop as Fultz is ready to flank, with Empire being none the wiser. He's got his work cut out for him as he'll approach over blue, and there's some heavy gunners from Empire that'll be there waiting for him. Hear the blowtorch working away on the panel, so Scyther's prepared for that one. This intel is known, and Joystick knows the Ash is coming now. He's aggressively taking the fight. Joystick does not lose those. The Cyborg is back, baby! 2 big kills from his position, and SSG are just running into their doom. It's only Thinking Nade getting that diffuser planted, but they'll stop him in his tracks. Empire look unstoppable right now, and they're up 2-0.
Beautiful play there from Joystick, holding firm in blue, and I mean, we talked about this in the lead-in, last 30 seconds. It was pretty obvious that Space Station, despite having that man advantage, didn't know where they wanted to convert it to a site hit. Well, this is always the critical point in these situations, and it's one of the most important things for teams to practice in Siege. I discussed it in Kafe. It's what Empire excels at. When you let them set up, even if they don't get a pick on any of the roamers, 5v5, 30 seconds left, that is where Empire excel. They do not do anything wrong in that scenario. We saw the exact opposite from SSG just now. And the tricky thing to add on top of that is when the roles are swapped, Empire still know what to do with those last 30 seconds now that they're on defense. They know what you're going to do, and they'll be ready for it. Joystick was, Empire was, SSG was not. So, 2 rounds in a row for Empire, and Space Station Gaming, despite all the attempts that they are making to change their play, are unfortunately not gaining the momentum or traction that they so desperately desire.
On Kafe, you saw some struggles from Space Station early on as they lost the plot of that first half, and Empire just simply overpowered them. In this instance, on a map that should be less comfortable for Space Station, we don't see any real difference. In terms of that needle moving, right now Empire are looking like the better team across the board. It was talked about in the community poll. So, I mean, at this point, Space Station, what do they do to recover? They've thrown just about everything at the wall in Kafe. Didn't really work out. They got caught a little bit sluggish at the start, but they are very rapidly losing control of this series against Empire.
Absolutely, Parker. This is tricky business for SSG, and they're going to need to start making some changes. Now we can see there's one mute jammer here on this wall, and Bosco is going to probably look for it. Maybe he'll trick the wall, see what he decides to do. Yep, okay, tricking. Interesting decision there. Knowing that it is a mute jammer, but oh, there's the electroclaw that goes out, so there was a trick attempt from the defense as well, thus using Maverick to open the wall. Sensible in that situation. Better safe than sorry, it seems.
Are SSG going to bother to clear out garage, or are they going to want to take control of construction? There's 2 paths inward on this bomb site. The first one is going to be opening up the main breach and then applying some pressure on that regard. Well, you've still got a hard destructor, but Fultz is currently going 0-3. Bosco's been downed as Empire, just taking the fights to SSG and just farming them for sport at this point.
Yep.
Rampy and Thinking Nade find themselves standing alone against a flawless Empire squad with 1.5 minutes to go. Now, it seems unlikely that they will go without a fight, but with the way that Empire's been playing, this moxie, this confidence, I don't know exactly what Rampy and Thinking Nade are going to be able to do here. especially with Thinking Nade only seconds away from falling at the hands of Joystick. A third kill for Joystick in this round as he sits atop 7 kills with the third round still ongoing.
Yeah, if he's able to get any more kills, then, I mean, that's just ridiculous. And you called it right, Parker. It appears the Cyborg has made a triumphant return. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to carry forward all the way. SSG are definitely looking very lost, and Empire are exploiting the heck out of that. But, you know, they could change at any moment. Thinking Nade, for example, is going to get Joystick inside of Cash, and that's a really important pick.
Next line of defense for Empire is Scyther at the top of red stairs. Thinking Nade could get the panel open, but there's a mute jammer on the other side of it that could be his undoing. The moment that Banshee goes off, Rampy is going to be in tough here, but he just pushes in, taking the fight right to them. Down goes Scyther. A round that was originally out of their grasp is now very winnable as SSG are cleaning up. Always punishes Thinking Nade, so Rampy will have to do it all on his own. With limited intel and limited time, he finds himself in a 1v1 and narrowly makes that one a 1v0 and gives his team the round. Picking up the case, he'll go for the defuse. Marks in, and there's a nitro cell for always, but he botches it and hits it just because of how low Rampy was. There's enough damage done to him. And like that, it's 3-0 for Empire.
So close on that C4, Parker. That easily could have missed entirely, but it doesn't. And Empire, you're right, they almost let that round slip away. What incredible play from Thinking Nade and Rampy. Really impressive stuff. It shouldn't have come that close, but hey, SSG's got the tenacity. Unfortunately, that tenacity is not being reflected in the round count. 0-3? I don't know. Spacestation are still fighting up a hill here, and it's looking very desperate. Rampy, though, mechanical play in that round. I really got to commend that. That was some of the best Siege in terms of mechanics that I've seen in quite a long while. You could see that Spacestation are still very motivated here. Obviously. That's how they got to the playoffs. Empire, on the other hand, though, are just too solid. They are exceptionally well-versed in not only their attacks, but their defenses. And if you want to support them and say, you know what, good job, Empire, you can get their skin. The esports tab on the in-game store. It's a great one on that DMR, and it's a good way to support the team directly.
Of course, the DMR available on 2 operators, Dokebi and Aruni. Aruni currently in play, by the way, but with the way that the land build works, high rate of fire guns will always trump other weapons. And in this case, that's why we see Scyther rocking the P90 instead of the DMR.
Typically, you'll bring the DMR if you're anticipating playing a very long angle. And apart from that, you're usually going to want to bring that a high rate of fire running.
Especially on a site like Gym Bedroom, there are so many close quarter bouts that you're going to be involved with that the Roni makes a lot of sense here. So you spray and pray and ends up having a DPS similar to, not quite as strong, but similar to what you see out of the SMG 11 and the Bearing 9. So that said, Empire's lineup is very similar to what we saw last time around on this map. The big focal point for Empire will be inside of the bathroom with the mirror window facing the jacuzzi wall. That will very soon become the jacuzzi breach. Now, last time, if you recall, Space Station got caught with their pants down out on that jacuzzi balcony, as SSG did not expect such aggressive plays from Empire. This time around, they'll likely be a bit more wary, as some small improvements from Space Station could tighten this match up. But for now, that remains to be seen, as Empire have a very firm hold on it. And a grenade goes off, or rather an Ash charge goes off, below Shepard, and he manages to avoid that for now, but that black mirror could get picked up. Another will go off on a joystick, so he finds himself on lower HP than he wanted to. This utility from SSG so far has been relatively well placed, even if it hasn't resulted in a casualty.
Damage being done, as you mentioned, and those nades from below. This is an underutilized nade, or potentially Ash charge, what have you. Underutilized explosive from below to try and dislodge any of the defenders playing in bathroom, being used quite well here by SSG. The vertical play for Empire is still in, though. They can challenge from above.
Dan lets one slip by on that breach, as this is almost a reversal of what had happened before when Dan was able to get by. There goes the mirror window, and Shepard is too wary of this. He doesn't have a nitro cell to use. Rampy gets kill number 1 onto Joystick. If there's any target that you want in this particular map to get rid of first, it's Joystick now. So Empire will have to make up for the vacuum that's created with his loss.
I'm sure they'll be able to, but With only 45 seconds, the question is, will SSG finally be able to make that conversion happen from the clear to the site hit? Fultz trying to creep up on Ren, and it looks like Scyther's aware of this. But does he know where the Ashe is going? The answer is yes. What a flick, and Shepard and Dan get one apiece also. The nade from Bosco will land after he's dead, but Scyther, now free to peek from server window, will get another for himself. Rampy alone, and he's been pretty incredible. But Empire's defense has been better.
My, oh my, SSG have 2 opening picks of the 4 rounds thus far, and Empire have just made them pay for it. Either way, as Empire are now up 4-0, SSG is going to take a timeout, and I was just going to ask, at what point do you try to cauterize the wound that is just pouring blood? Because that's the position that Spacestation finds themselves in right now. So some surgical work needs to be done here by Lycan and the rest of the team, because you are falling farther behind round by round by round. You talked about the looks on the faces of SSG after that Kafe matchup and after their huddle, that they looked a bit relaxed. Well, their faces couldn't be anything farther from that right now, Michael, as this just looks like they are currently attending a funeral. They'll go to a timeout and see what they can try to muster up, as they'll have 2 rounds to try and stop the momentum that Empire has built up here on this first defense before SSG themselves go to defense. Now, the saving grace is that on a map like Clubhouse, with how defender-sided it is, you're going to get a leg up over your opponent when you swap sides. But just as we saw in Kafe, it ends up being too little, too late.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing is, you know, they're taking their tactical timeout now. They're conversing, but I think honestly, Spacestation have talked a lot already. I'm gonna be blunt about my analysis here. I do think that Spacestation are not prepared for Empire style of play. Frankly, it doesn't necessarily mean that Empire is the outright superior team necessarily in the overarching history of these teams. But it does mean right now, the way these teams are matching up with each other, Empire is hard countering SSG's style of play. Spacestation, in one particular point here, is expecting a lot more leeway to make the maneuvers that they want, that they're used to out of the NAL, and they're not getting it with Empire. And Empire also have been reading into the fact that SSG are leaving it gaps, glaring holes in their attacks. And so Empire, they've obviously been explained. I mean, one of the most obvious examples of that is when Joystick ran out of garage door. You genuinely, you don't see that a lot at this level, especially with the stakes being as high as they are, unless one team is choking and not shoring up all the gaps. And that's what we're seeing from SSG.
Well, no real changes here to SSG's lineup overall, so nothing particularly radical coming out in terms of operator composition, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. You could still use the same 5 tools, but use them all in different ways. You know that with the way the site rotation is working right now, the only 2 bomb sites that were open for Empire were the main floor bar stock, which never gets played, or the church arsenal downstairs. So you can tailor your lineup knowing the way that the site rotation works to perfectly use the right gadgets for the job. In this case, the last time around, Joystick in particular was able to hold down on blue and pivot from there towards Oil Pit and also look towards Moto and do a substantial amount of damage in the process, while the hatch drop from Space Station did not have the coverage on the wings of the site that they needed. Mainly through Dirt Tunnel, where Scyther was able to shut down the Maverick at the time, and where Joystick was able to shut down Fultz. Fultz, by the way, through these 4 rounds, still looking for his very first kill. For somebody like Fultz, the caliber player that he is, playing on fragging roles, that is not good for Space Station at all.
Now, a 4-2 half, as has been discussed plenty of times, is not too bad. It was even brought up in the analyst desk, actually, by, I think it was Jesse, when we finished Kafe. Because SSG couldn't recover. They were too far gone at that point. 4-2 half is not too bad, though. And SSG gets these 2 rounds here, and ooh, that's a big miss on the C4. If SSG gets these 2 rounds here, then there is a chance still for a map number 3.
Absolutely. Like we said, when Space Station goes on to defense, they will benefit from that, but they have to get there first. And if you get there at a point where Empire is up 6-0, it just becomes too tall of an order where you cannot slip up. Being picture perfect is not something that the best teams can do consistently.
Now, interestingly, we do have Habana in play. She is not banned. However, she's not being brought by Spacestation. For this bottom floor attack, that really does limit your kit. It looks like they want to go. Okay, no. To Thinking Nade's credit, this is a very difficult toss because of that extra little tiny bit of wall there. But he's frustrated with it, and that's going to compound in the other frustration from losing all those rounds.
He talked about how this was a relatively hard toss to make. Always might be present or just there to do it himself, but
he misses.
He misses it as well. Everybody is missing it on the same panel. All the while this happened, Dan took the fight to SSG, and now Spacestation will have to confront the close angle play of Shepard. Scyther gunning down hot and cold, so this timeout for SSG not working. A ring around the Rosie through the doorway to Moto as teams trade back and forth. Fultz finds his very first kill, but he's going to have to find 2 more with 5 seconds left. The diffuser miles away. This round is completely over. 5-0 for Empire.
Wow. 5-0 indeed, Parker, because there is nothing that I am seeing so far from Spacestation's play that suggests to me they will be able to rally from this deficit. This is a desperate scenario, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. I really do think that the prep and the thought that SSG has put into this match was either misplaced, inadequate, or just flat out wrong. But whatever's happening here, I don't know. It's not what we expected. And it's not even what the community expected. 55% of the community thought SSG would take this. And we're not done yet, mind you.
There's still more to play, but at this point, one of the greatest weaknesses that Spacestation used to have as a roster was their ability to mentally lose a matchup.
That's true.
The fix for that was when Canadian stepped onto the squad, and I think the greatest contribution that he made to the team was instilling a sense of leadership where he could take the team back from the edge of the cliff. Hot and cold is a lot of things. His leadership capabilities have never been a main focal point for him as a player. He's tremendous in and out of the server. He can play on a variety of roles and typically do well, even if his performance here so far in Mexico has not been up to snuff in comparison to what we saw in the NA League. But I worry that Spacestation doesn't have that veteran leadership anymore to be able to center the team. Because right now, not just those grim looks on their faces, but they're playing like they don't have confidence. They are playing like they are willingly letting Empire set the tone, and they are not putting up a fight. We see teams play aggressively and put up a fight, but still get outmatched, and that's fine. But what I'm seeing at a Spacestation right now is not that. They are not giving it their all and still losing. It looks like they're playing scared, and that emotion is going to get to them. And they need to figure that out because Empire only need 2 more rounds to send SSG home.
The really sad thing about it, Parker, is we've seen exactly what you're describing from so many other teams in this tournament, but often that's what's expected. For example, Damwon Gaming, or Damwon Kia, excuse me. I don't think that they gave us the performance that we all knew they were, capable of the first match of the day. So, and that's just one example. We saw that throughout the group stages as well. Many teams falling short, Sonics, for example. But I don't think it's fair to expect that of Spacestation. They're not supposed to be that team. Not anymore.
Oh, well, that's a good start. Fultz is just starting to warm up, but it'll be short-lived as Scyther punishes him, and an early grave awaits Fultz. Half of the round gone, and now Bosco's under fire from over by Strip Club as Empire only have 3 bodies near the site, another far enough away. Dan worried about getting pushed from stock. He'll look all the way from Billiards through bar. He'll have to get back to the site as best as he can. Rampy taking damage as he walks in. That sound, by the way, is going to be given away to Always playing above on rafters. Flashbang will go up. There's no real protection. Always botches the C4. C4 down goes Shepard. And Always will now have to worry about the grenade going up near him. Scyther picks up another as Always will tussle from this corner. There's one still beneath him that he needs to be wary of as a grenade goes by, but it doesn't do enough damage. Scyther next to fall as they will double up on him, and Always right now has the attention of the 3 members of SSG, and he will need to be picked away at as finally, with the very final round of this half, Spacestation gets on the board.
That's big, really big for Spacestation, and I could hear it from here. We're sitting awful close to Spacestation. They were excited about that round. There was a lot of emotion built into that one, and it's important that they took that. But 5-1 is the same scoreline that we saw out of the first half of Kafe just a little bit ago. So, I don't know. I'm still scared for SSG's chances. On the other hand, I'm very impressed by what we've seen from Empire. Super solid siege being played. And now that they go into attack, I think that'll continue.
Well, Space Station warming up, but we see what's right in front of us, a potential, a second chance?
Defenders, protect your bombs
Brewing,
from being defused
a
by
repeat,
attackers.
if I say so, of Kafe, where Space Station are finally able to get some confidence going and get a round or two under their belt. And yet still, because they have given up so many rounds earlier on, they just can't claw their way back in.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe they can.
5-1 halves are so rare.
So incredibly rare to come back from, yeah.
We've already seen 2 so far in this matchup, and they've both been done by Empire.
Yeah.
So for Space Station, you don't need to be picture perfect because you can still lose 1 round, but if you do the same to Empire as they just did to you, overtime is in the cards.
Yeah. And then
You have a 1 round wiggle room, that's it. It's just, it is
Attackers must
And
it
te-
is spectacular how dominant Empire look.
yeah. And you add a little bit of extra pressure for SSG. They've already lost a map. I mean, what more could go wrong for Space Station? Well, let's see.
So much of the matchups that we see can be defined by one team performing really well versus one team performing
Really poorly.
way below standard. And I think this is obviously a mix of both. Empire are ice cold and are beating out SSG in all their gunfights and are never doubting their own ability.
Yep.
But they are getting a major helping hand from Space Station playing scared.
Playing scared, and I think the formula that Space Station has brought to this match was just not the right one, it seems. Now let's talk about the formula in this round, because it is actually a bottom floor defense, and SSG are doing the fabled SSG roam. Without the castle, of course, but they're still heavily invested and extended upstairs. They're going to be hard holding this off of the mirror windows. And oh, the run out from Hot and Cold, complete miss. He does no damage, and it costs him an impact, and he's getting cut off, and he won't make it out of that
That's
one
the
alive.
kind of thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
Try to have that confidence, but Hot and Cold is such an accurate aimer. He's mechanically gifted. He doesn't miss those opportunities, and yet he does. Why? Why? Because Space Station are in their own heads with the scoreline being what it is. The good news for them is that even though they lose Hot and Cold, they still pick up 2 kills on the Empire, one of which ends up being Joystick.
No, there
Dan
is.
has managed to wake his way in, though, but there's a crossfire potential, and what an unbelievable start to their defense as SSG just whisks away Empire.
Really solid round there from Space Station, and they are getting loud over there. I think it's mostly Rampy, which is great. It's fantastic. Space Station are still in this one mentally. For the most part. Well, I do agree with your assessment, though, Parker. Hot and Cold on that run out was inside his own head. He prevented himself from taking the fight in a confident manner in which he would have won it. He had the advantage in every single way. He just wasn't able to fully commit. CCTV Cash, the next defense here for Space Station, and we'll see if this is something they're going to be able to continue on with this, well, you know, a little bit of hope. That's the way I'm going to describe it.
Attackers need to locate and defuse
No.
the bombs.
The kit being brought from both teams, nothing too surprising. Nothing worth talking about. A lot more comms being brought up right now, actually. I can hear them quite clearly. I think it's starting to get a little bit more intense because, frankly, for the last little bit here, actually through most of this match, we haven't really seen a whole lot of head-to-head. I don't know how else to put that. I'm trying to be delicate here.
This has been a stomp.
Yes, that's...
You don't need to be delicate.
So,
Empire
yes.
look incredibly terrifying
10
and
seconds
have
remaining.
slowly gotten better the more that the group stages have went on. Empire continued to improve, make refinements, and really settled in. A team that used to be talked about, that used to do this,
Locate and defuse
is a
the
team that
bombs.
SSG knew quite well way back, was that old EG squad. There was, I remember back in 2018 when they went up against Penta. On the road to the finals, the constant chatter from teams was that EG always got better as time went on. Well, Empire seems to be channeling that right now, and even though it's been many years since EG even existed as a roster, Empire aren't just settling into a groove. They're playing with each other effectively. They are trading. They find space, droning well. They are doing an exceptional job.
I like how Empire are going to open the soft wall first before Maverick tricking. Now, this is usually not done because you run the risk of leaving yourself exposed as the Maverick when you finally make the wall break. But Shepard is confident. Also, always is covering Shepard on that angle. Falls goes for the challenge, and the bait almost works for Empire. It's an even exchange of HP.
You don't want to lose Fultz too early on. Bosco off of that coveted smoke roll that we've seen him play time and time again. It's Fultz to do that instead, and it's imperative that your smoke with 3 toxic canisters that are so crucial in the later portion of a round that he stays alive. Rampy will now go downstairs for the lurk, and if there's no suitable flank watch for Empire, he can very easily get under their skin and elude their gaze and do some significant damage. After Empire opened up that one wall in the breach, currently looks towards CCTV, their next focus will very likely be on establishing control of construction. Hot and Cold will be the one tasked to stop that, as the Mirror was playing all on his own, selfishly, over by Bathroom.
Oh. Dan looking for the roamers. Rampy trying to elude him. Successful thus far. No droning here from Empire. That's notable because usually they'll drone out players in those kinds of positions so that they can get the kill. But Empire's spread a little thin. Joystick's going to be on a solo clear downstairs. He's going to be awfully loud with his stomping. The question is, will Rampy hear it as the action starts elsewhere?
Hot and Cold looked like he was going to be the first to fall after taking all that damage, but it's actually Shepard to go. Rampy sees the Tracers whiz by, so he heads for the hills, linking up with Fultz on the top of Red, waiting for 2 more to come from that angle. Empire looking to lock this one away and put them on a match point as a second kill comes in from their end. It's going to go on to Bosco. Down Hot and Cold, and Bosco go. They'll wait patiently. This duel to the death right now on Red stairs, and Fultz still has those toxic canisters, 2 of which can very easily impede the advances along with the barbed wire. One will go off, and with 25 seconds left, another can be thrown down to protect himself and cover his behind. You're going to wait for the rush on in as the Selmas go off, and Scyther is in the bomb site getting the diffuser planted. Rampy is all aware of this. He gets slaughtered by Dan. Down goes Always, so Dan now pushing up aggressively, thinking Nate from below will try to do some work, and he'll do it, stopping Scyther in his tracks and getting the other kill as well onto Always. Dan picks up that diffuser, and he goes for the plant. They're going to try to bait him out on time. He's only got 1 second left. No kill. Kill doesn't matter. It's an impressive run from Space Station as they've now put 3 together in a row.
Wow, what a save there from Thinking Nade. Exactly what his team needed in the perfect moment. The shotgun blasts through the floor. That is thanks to the bulletproof camera placed by the Aruni earlier in the round. If not for that, the information is not relayed, and Empire safely win that round off their plant. Tactical timeout for Empire. And this is the first time we have seen Empire seriously on the ropes. They are now in a position where, as SSG has been this whole match, they have to consider their moves much more carefully.
Well, it looked like that round was almost a lock, but SSG hits their marks as there was not suitable coverage for the diffuser being planted. Scyther was in, and it looked like he had that lockout, especially with Dan taking up space from all the way in garage into the middle of the site, but it wasn't enough. The play on Red Stairs ended up being quite pivotal, and then SSG fell away, realizing the clock was working on their side. They also killed a lot of time with Hot and Cold's roam, as construction didn't go in Empire's favor as quickly as Empire wanted because of the beachhead that had been established on the other side of the map. So any momentum that Empire had put forward earlier on is now all but gone. Empire stitched together 5 rounds without any opposition. SSG have now done the same across the last 3 rounds, ending the first half with a single round win. Still a mighty amount of work to be done, but as time goes on both of these maps, SSG seems to be settling in, getting far more comfortable. It wasn't enough on Kafe. There's still time to turn it around here on Clubhouse to push Oregon as a 3rd map.
Now here's the tricky thing, Parker. We talked about Gym and it being the tertiary bomb site. It is well known by Empire that they must be attacking Gym, unless SSG decided to go to bar. So that's why the timing for the tactical timeout for Empire is perfect. They know where they're going to attack, they know what to expect, and they can plan out their execution with all bases covered. So Empire's now got that advantage locked and loaded. They're ready to bring it out. That means there's more pressure on Space Station now on the tertiary bomb site, typically the weakest, to do something different so that Empire's plan is disrupted.
I have very fond memories of watching the rhythm that Rampy would play off of inside of Cash when he would play on Kaid, juggling those electric claws on the walls while also denying any breach potential with the impacts that Kaid used to have. Now obviously Rampy's not going to be in that position. It's Thinking Nate, and he's got a Nitro Cell as the changes to Kaid have made the site a little bit harder to defend. But Empire's focus will be to open up that wall and then immediately take the assault to Cash. Fultz has come online. At one point, he was the bottom performer in the lobby. He is now close to even. This is a crucial round for him in particular, because if he is able to waste a ton of time here in Cash, even if he dies, that is enough for the rest of his team to potentially capitalize off of when Empire looks to translate that to the bomb site.
Pixel play here from Fultz. Still electricity on that wall, so he's protected for the most part from rafters. But he's looking for the drones. That's his priority. Down goes the Goyo shield by Red. Rampy still has cover here, though. He can continue to play this position. And you can see that Spacestation, they do not want to let this position fall. They are holding firm. That's their difference.
Oh my. And he just flies under the radar as Hot and Cold picks up his second kill in this matchup down below. That's a good waste of time, and taking Dan out of the equation is crucial. Rampy falls, though, and Fultz is going to be the next one in the line of sight as red control goes away, and Fultz gets splattered from a variety of angles. Just like that, Empire have taken control of an advantage in terms of numbers. Bosco will try to head back in to try and cut off and deny a push that Empire hopes to capitalize off of through Cash, but the Smoke doesn't want to gamble his life, especially with the fact that you already trail. A brazen play here could potentially net a massive kill to put you back on even footing. But an operator like Smoke is desperately needed in the dying rounds, and with a minute to go, you want to hold on to those toxic canisters.
Empire aware of their advantage, and they don't want to leave anything to chance, so they're going to drone their way into Workshop. Joystick challenging into Office, and he's ready to take that fight. There's no one there, though. SSG are playing very safe because, as you mentioned, Parker, they don't want to take any risks. That might be to their undoing, though. It's difficult to say against Empire what the right call is, but Empire's set up and ready to execute.
Doesn't look like there's any focus on that jacuzzi wall as well, so Empire are going to funnel in through construction, maybe try to take logistics, and that's where Joystick is. Waiting for it to open up, there's a Nitro Cell underneath the ground that they need to make sure that they get. Joystick doesn't know if he got it, but he's going to continue to move in anyway. Just firing away at the opening, but he gets swung on by Hot and Cold. Can't do more than one as Shepard gets the trade back. Any trades will benefit Empire as they look to push to match point, but they get gunned down, leaving Thinking Nate defend for the rest of his team. Match point right now awaits Empire. Nitro Cell goes out, Thinking Nate on the fadeaway, but always gets to him first, and it's match point, series point for Empire.
Absolutely incredible, Parker. Had that C4 detonated, we might have seen a very different story. Thinking Nate just a second off, and the awareness from always to make that play and stop the denial. Wow, incredible stuff. We're seeing some interesting siege from both of these teams, but both of them also at an extremely high level. Yes, mistakes are being made by both squads. Yes, more by SSG. But it's still this close. Earlier in the match, and on Kafe, I would have said that the round count accurately represents the nature of the match. Kafe was not close. It was not very interesting. Spacestation had some moments, but not really. Here, though, on Clubhouse, Spacestation are playing way better. This could easily be an even match right now, but not quite. Empire still one away from knocking out this series, despite the amazing siege that we're seeing here, Parker. And I, for one, again, off of Kafe, I wouldn't have wanted a third map. Off of this, I want to keep seeing this.
Yeah, now that SSG seemingly found their groove, even if the scoreline is actually worse for Spacestation than it was for them on Kafe, it seems like there's more bark in SSG's bite through the last couple rounds that has made this a much more competitive matchup.
Yeah.
Now, there's still plenty of time for SSG to hold this together. You talked about it in the previous round, the tertiary bomb site of Gym Bedroom so frequently goes against the defenders, which is why that 4-2 scoreline is common, because the defenders will win Church twice, Cash twice, and lose Gym Bedroom twice as well.
Yeah, and on that note, the tricky thing here for Spacestation is, if they do want OT, they're going to have to go back to Gym.
And win it.
And win it.
That's the thing. You now have no room for error. We talked about being picture perfect earlier on. This is the time where it kicks in. So, with it being a Church defense, we talked about the SSG roam. They've changed some things up. Quite a bit, in fact. Rampy reunited with Ella. That is nice to see. as he plays above. No shotgun in hand. That's such a formidable weapon to deal with, especially in close quarter combat that tends to happen here on Clubhouse.
I mean, frankly, that the changed compensator is really good on the SMG for Ella, and she's been actually becoming more popular as of late for players who just want to frag out. Definitely a potent option, and in SSG's case, that's what they need. They need people to just frag out, because the strategy is clearly in Empire's corner.
Can absolutely shred at such close range. So keep an eye on what Rampy does and whether he can have an effect. He's already thrown out 2 of those Guzman mines. Oh. Dan goes down and then Houghton follows. Teams trade off 1 apiece as the action's going to happen much faster than we thought. Fultz can't get the entry from Empire as they look to brisk into the site. Shepard has the plant going down right in the single panel. Fultz is behind him though, but he gets gunned down by Always, and it looks like Shepard's going to be successful. Yes, he is. He pops up. Always still with the coverage here, and Empire are locking them out. But Rampy tries a re-entry, and it works quite successfully. He's arm in arm with Thinking Nade. They've managed to dwindle Empire's numbers down to just Scyther, who still holds from above. He can watch this. He's got the line of sight. He can fire through the wall, but they're trying to long arm it. Scyther will have to drop at some point, and that's exactly where Thinking Nade is going to be, but no, Thinking Nade peeks when he doesn't need to, and it's Scyther and Rampy in a 1v1. Around blue they'll play. Scyther still watching the angle, and Rampy slaps him down, and he has plenty of time to save the round for his team, and SSG stays alive.
Well, I said he needed to frag out, and by Jove, he did, Parker. What an incredible play from Rampy on the retake. Exactly what you needed to have by box 3. Very close quarters. As you mentioned, the SMG works perfectly. Space Station still alive, even if just barely. And oh man, you can see it on Rampy's face.
There's absolutely got to be nerves at play there. You think about it. SSG has played for the World Championship. 4 of the players on that team are world champions. And yet still, the nerves come back to you when such a pivotal moment arises. Thinking Nade made a small mistake, assuming that Rampy would stick the diffuser, and Thinking Nade swung. Now, the idea that I assume is that Thinking Nade was going to buy time. Provoke a fight with Scyther. If you win, great, you win the round. If you lose, you've at least bought some time for Rampy to be able to get the disable off.
Right.
But Rampy pulled off the diffuser and instead made the calculation that I'm a sitting duck. Let's actually take the engagement here. That's a 50-50, and it's a tough one to do, especially when both of you are vying for time, because the longer that Scyther lives and the longer that Rampy isn't on that diffuser, the worse it gets for SSG to then get on with that 7-second disable time and stop Empire from winning the round.
The majority of the wins here from Space Station have been clear-cut clutches. Nothing else going on there. Again, I said it earlier, the strategy for Empire is impeccable. They're doing everything just right. SSG cannot handle that. They had the Thinking Nade clutch from Lounge, shooting up from below to deny the defuse plant in the dying seconds of the round. We just saw the Rampy clutch. SSG, backs against the wall, are using their individual talents to claw out of the jaws of defeat. Empire, I mean, they're still not out of this, but this is going to be really surprising for them because I don't know of many teams that can play Siege the way that SSG are playing it right now. They are bending over backwards to win rounds.
So much for the lack of confidence, so much for playing scared. A total change of pace for Space Station. So we go back to a bomb site that SSG won on before they got the opening pick, and then they were able to carry on the rest of the round. The diffuser did not get planted from Empire, so it was pretty much a lockout on SSG's part. Empire start by doing the same thing they did before, open up one of the panels on the wall using the Maverick and Sledge combo. But the difference here is that it's the separate panel that's now been opened up. So they'll look, or no, that's the same panel, isn't it? Is it the same panel?
Wait,
am I crazy?
What panel are you talking about? No, they.
It's the same panel.
Yeah, I think they've been opening the same one. Yeah, no, they've been opening the inside one.
I'm delusional.
I mean, we've seen both opened, I think, but mostly the inside one.
Joystick creeping down below, by the way, as we hit the halfway point in the round. This has been a very, very quick round thus far.
And compared to other Empire attacks, you can see that they're kind of picking up their pace. This comes back to what I was discussing earlier. SSG does give a lot away for free. Impact tricking is going to kind of sort of work. You're going to get the second one on the wall, but there's no rotate, but the cut is still there, and that's what Dan wants. He wants the angle.
Rampy can continue to play in that position for quite a while. Any hard destruction that will go down, like those Selmas that we see right now, will be on the logistics wall. There were some ADSs played inside of construction if Rampy wanted to continue to hold that spot, but instead he falls off. and most of Space Station are ready and waiting for an assault through construction. All the while, Joystick has been a shadow, and Hot and Cold finds him, shines some light on him, and that's the very first opening pick. Dan's been downed, and Always will need to retrieve him, and will do so quite well, but Empire are losing grip on this round with only 40 seconds to go.
Not only on this round, Parker, but by extension on this match, it's getting awfully close to a overtime situation. There goes the gas canisters. With only 30 seconds left, Empire have to go.
Shepard is holding up on the window. The moment that the Maestro goes up, that'll be a pick, but he looks away at the wrong time and manages to net it anyway onto Fultz. That's a crucial player from Space Station who's now down and out. Over on red stairs, Scyther will try his best, but he can't really do all that much. Dan drops. He'll go from down below, and Scyther will have to go through that toxic canister. He gets lit up as Scyther looks through the door. Still, and SSG are holding them at bay. Dan tripped up in the barbed wire, Rampy pistol out, and the kill feed is all SSG's, all blue. 3 seconds left, and it looks like we are going to need a 12th round to settle this one, as Always won't get in the building, and he gets vanquished by Bosco.
Wow, what a hold there for SSG. A lot to go into that, though, because we didn't see Empire hold or take Garage. SSG gets Garage for free. Rafters is great to deny a push through the server window, through the construction wall, or the construction door, which is exactly where Empire's coming from. They don't have a significant enough man advantage to make that work 90% of the time. They don't even utilize server window. So when Empire's coming through, they're going through funnels, and it's not easy, especially with the gas canisters coming out from SSG. On top of that, Rampy is on something. He is landing all of the shots in all of the situations where he's presented with an opportunity to land a shot. He's not got the most impressive scoreline, but his impact has been undeniable.
Everybody's woken up here. Fultz in particular has gotten a bit quiet, but that's okay because it's a team effort. Both of the teams currently in the lobby have no shortage of depth whatsoever. In fact, SSG are benefiting from Dan being quite quiet so far in this matchup. Not just being unable to find the scoreboard, but also the utility and gadgetry from Dan has been far less impactful than what we saw in Kafe.
I mean, Dan did pull his weight in Kafe, as you mentioned, and let's zoom out to the best of 3. He's done a lot. But I think that it's not just
pull his weight. He damn well won the whole map.
He did. He really did, yeah. No, but it's not just about the individuals here for Empire. It's about the fact that their teamwork, their structure, which normally can carry them to round wins, is not significant enough here to beat SSG, at least not quite yet. There's one more chance this round for Empire to deny overtime and to just end this right now in its tracks. And I wouldn't put it past them. I know that SSG have been winning these rounds. I know they're starting to rack it up, and they're looking real great doing it. That last round was the most confident SSG round I've seen from them so far. But it's not over.
Oh, it could be far from over. Empire does have the fact that this is a bomb site that is not always won by the defenders, especially in comparison to Cash, CCTV,
we
and
talked
Jim.
about this, yeah.
We talked about this. So SSG, their perfect rotation was they faltered on it. It was foiled by Empire back in round number 9, which is what pushed Empire to match point. SSG will have to make some small adjustments. They've got a Frost on the board. No Mirror present.
I like the Frost pick. I think it might work. I don't think it's going to get you a Frost trap triggered on Empire, but it can distract them in those gunfights, which is super important when the margins are so low here. These players are playing at the razor's edge.
I mean, this is a huge difference from the way that they played it before because Cash was so aggressively held by Space Station, and yet is not at all, which allowed Empire to waltz right in through CCTV and continue to move forward and now take some of construction.
All 3 ADSs are invested in construction to protect that shield, and the nade didn't destroy the shield nor the ADSs, so it will persist. There's no defender there, though. Joystick does get touched by a C4, but just a tickle. He's fine. He'll be okay.
SSG hunkered down in the bomb site with 90 seconds still left to play. Empire's assault will come from construction likely again. They neglected the jacuzzi entrance before while holding control of the windows, essentially boxing SSG in. And with the location of Fultz, Bosco, and Rampy being where they are, playing over by logistics, playing on the top of the stairs, and thinking they're not too far off either, that means that if a plant goes down, that there will be good coverage from the window for Empire. Fultz playing a cheeky angle here right now, and he tries to start things off, doing most of Always' HP, but the Sledge is still able to walk away, and that's crucial information that they have now, as well as to the location of Space Station inside of logistics.
Still a lot of time here for Empire. It's quite deceptive because the tension is palpable, but Empire doesn't need to force an engagement just yet. They can slowly and methodically take this push.
Joystick knows that they're in there, but he needs somebody to help him up on that hatch as he looks in one direction, stops it, and Fultz pre-fires. Still has the attention of Bosco. Down he goes, and Fultz picks up another 3 big kills for Fultz on 1 HP, and it's all left to Dan, who survives a Nitro Cell, but doesn't survive Rampy, and Space Station pushes overtime.
And it's a flawless round to cap it off there, Parker. What an impressive play from Fultz inside of Office. We've got the strategy for Empire, but SSG have got the mechanical skill, and they're leveraging that to bring us all the way. It's not done. We've got 2 rounds left for one of these teams to win before we see map 2 go either way.
Really unbelievable stuff, and Space Station will have the good fortune of defending twice.
Yes.
Which is extraordinary given the fact that right now there have only been 2 of 12 rounds that have broke in favor of the attackers. Now, just because they get to defend twice does not mean that it's going to be a walk in the park, and it certainly doesn't mean that the match is theirs, because we have seen time and time again that when you get to overtime, the script gets flipped on its head.
Yeah.
And the attackers gain momentum for enough rounds that it doesn't matter what side they start on. SSG will go back downstairs to Church. This is technically another rotation for them as they were successful in their previous endeavor on Church, CCTV, and Gym. And if they prove successful here and Empire wins on the next round, thus pushing us to a 15th and final round, I have no doubt that CCTV Cash will be where we go.
I mean, they did just get a flawless round on Jim. I'm not going to expect that to be repeated, but yeah maybe. Well, Space Station are bringing the Mira. So possibly an extension here with those Mira windows. We've seen them do that before. And it looks like, yes, based on that, Kai, it's going to be that extension. There you go. That's going to be indestructible on the defender side of that wall. You'll have to go below to find that.
It's the same lineup that SSG ran with before when they held map control upstairs on that Gym and Master side of the map. Very quickly on, very early on, the logistics hatch goes, which will allow a soft drop for Empire if they choose to go that route, but that doesn't seem to be the focus. Instead, they're going to assess if somebody is even playing inside of Master. It's Rampy and Thinking Nade holding on to that top floor at the moment. Rampy over by Red Stairs, Thinking Nade playing inside of Bedroom. He's got the mirror window if he needs to take a quick peek at that jacuzzi wall, but for now it remains electrified and completely solid. Rampy will expect any kind of pressure that might come out from Empire from the CCTV wall, which is where Shepard and Dan are very quickly aligned.
Patience here for SSG. All they need to do is not give away a pick. Empire haven't read this extensive roam and aren't going to go for a direct site hit. They know they have to clear. So the longer SSG wastes time, the better it is for them. Empire have been decidedly non-lethal until just now. There's Joystick. He's been very quiet as of late, and he's finally going to get a kill. Most of his kills, all in the first half. Attack has been rough for him, but not so in this leadoff. And down goes Fultz, the hero of last round.
Empire's guns have gone quiet for that entire half, in fact, where they only really had that one strong showing back in round 9. SSG dominated as the defense tends to do here on Clubhouse. Thinking Nade rotated earlier on as he might be the next target for Empire. As they continue to hold upstairs, Empire know this. They've got bodies inside of construction. Thinking Nade has no intel as to where they're going to come from. Could Rampy potentially help out at all? Watching the window to see if somebody's out on the balcony. All the while that this is happening, the remaining players from Empire are going to have to get their act together because the diffuser is on top of the building and there's under a minute left to go in the round.
Yeah, this is a very slow clear of the roamers, and Rampy's going to take a little bit of a scuffle there with Shepard. Even exchange. Thinking Nade, I'll swear, will take some damage, but it's a down and a finish off, and uh-oh, SSG, real bad position now as they find themselves in a 2 versus 4 after the roamers are finally cleared by Empire.
Hot and Cold and Bosco down below as Empire will be within the next 30 seconds right at their doorstep. And I mean, hey, Kaid and Amira aren't terrible operators, but they're not necessarily the two that I want to be able to hold out on the assault that's coming. The kitchen hatch still remains solid, and Shepard holding that diffuser has only 20 seconds to get it down. They don't have any other hard destruction to open this up because Scyther was the one who died early on.
They have to
so
go.
they have to go through the dirt tunnel. But there's a doorway blocking them. Hot and Cold distracted by gunfights elsewhere. He starts things off with a kill onto Dan. Empire breaks through dirt tunnel. They kill Bosco, so Hot and Cold will need to clutch. He pulls out the pistol and he can't do it because the sidearm from Joystick is better. And the streak from SSG is over as Empire moves to match point.
And this is crucial, Parker. They won an attack. That's the third attack won by either team through this entire map. And we discussed how overtime is usually where the gears start changing and the upsets happen on the sides. But that is absolutely monumental for Empire. They now capture the mental momentum and they get to go on to defense. SSG have got to be feeling in the absolute gutter. It's going to take an absolute miracle for them to clutch this up.
Well, they've got a tall task ahead of them. The only victory on attack that SSG could muster was on CCTV cache upstairs. They were unsuccessful on both attempts on this bomb site down below. In fact, the last round was the first time that any attacker had won a church take. So the odds are definitely not in Space Station's favor. That said, the odds were certainly not in their favor after the first half. We talked about how rare 5-1s are. Well, we've seen 3 5-1s through 4 halves in these matches. So you can't necessarily predict the way a round will go when the unthinkable continues to happen.
I just wish this was a best of 5.
You want us to die?
No, this has been some of the best Siege we've seen in this tournament so far. It's been really interesting. Map number 1 was horrendous, but this map, this Clubhouse?
Map number 1 started to get interesting. I don't know, I mean, the beginning was horrendous.
Okay, sure.
The beginning was horrendous in terms of competitiveness.
So
it was Empire just clobbering.
Sure. I mean, you want to say maybe the last 15 rounds or so?
I mean, Empire were so dominant on that first map onward, but SSG are making a statement here. This is a very comfortable map. North America plays Clubhouse quite a lot, and most NA teams are quite good on it. This was known as Empire's playground for so long. BDS is also quite proficient on this map too. So Europe has tons of practice here. So both teams are expected to be competitive.
Last round, it was the roam clear from Empire that got them the win. They were very slow on it, but SSG kept giving the opportunities away. This time, it's roam clear turn for Space Station. They're going to try and find some Empire players, but I actually don't even know if anyone's off site. I'm seeing 4 bodies on site for the defense, at least, and I don't know where the 5th is.
Probably dirt tunnel?
Yeah, no, he's in oil pit. Joystick kind of a little bit touchy there on the positioning. That was dangerous, but that means all defenders, bottom floor. No opportunity for Space Station to get the pick.
He's going to have to thread the needle on that toss with a nitro cell. Both teams having some difficulties with the bar between the reinforcement over towards the bottom of the main stairs. Need to be a little bit more proficient with those tosses, thinking he had some difficulty, as did always.
I love this. That opens up the opportunity for a late push from main to Arsenal. You don't see that very often because it's very dangerous, but more options, the better for Space Station.
Well, there's half of the round to go. SSG realize they've completely cleared out the top and mid-floor, so that's all they need. Now they can go towards the basement. Impact tricking goes off on the hatch. Not sure if it was entirely successful. Does Dan have another one in his pocket to go? No. Ooh. So the 2 Selmas are successful, and Thinking Nade doesn't need to overcommit. He's got 1 remaining that can go onto that church wall. A small change for SSG was the last time they attacked this site. They had the Thermite. You talked about how Hibana was in play, and they chose not to go with her. The Ace might be a better strategic decision at the moment.
Here come the stuns to try and clear out the ADSs in blue, possibly followed up by a nade. There's nobody actually in blue. It's Dan playing by B3. Empire is very clumped together, and as Bosco gets the first pick, Space Station are looking good.
Dan's party inside of blue as Rampy drops, but Dan is prepared for that. Joystick credit with the kill as always pushes up aggressively, folds out duels him. Dan is ready for the next one on the ground, so Bosco will have to help out. Dan good enough to get the shot on the Fultz, and then immediately pivots, but Bosco slaps him away. Shepard will have to hold his team. What are we looking at right now? The attackers are having an absolute bonanza here in overtime, and with the diffuser going down, things go from bad to worse for Empire. Still hold up inside of Church, and how fitting, because Shepard is going to need an absolute miracle right now, with the diffuser still being watched. Halo gunfire going in, and Bosco gets the last kill, and we're going to need 15 rounds to settle this one.
Huge sway in the momentum there. Back and forth with these teams, it seems to never end. Space Station, they want to bring us all the way, and they have. So they'll go back to defense, and they can pick whatever site they want since they lost their first defensive round. That gives them a lot of options. They can adjust based on what they had experience-wise last time. Empire, what a strange round. Mostly, I think it's that blue take and the Candelas from Rampy.
That was able to paralyze the defense as they look to retake. Always, in particular, gets pushed from two separate angles in blue. I don't think they were expecting both the oil drop and blue stairs as well. And then the third player from SSG, which was Bosco, to come through Dirt Tunnel. They perfectly enveloped the back of the site. While that diffuser could get planted, all of Empire's focus was on the Candelas. All of it.
Yeah.
They were completely isolated and just staring at blue. All the while, Space Station had that split push go, dropped in the kitchen, got the diffuser down, and then locked out blue, putting Empire in a position where they just simply could not retake without too many crossfires stopping them.
That's the crucial point, isn't it? Because we were very fixated on blue when we were watching it unfold. But there was a split push coming from Moda. Those two players for SSG made all the difference. The church hold is absolutely not possible at that point. So Space Station, for the final round, they have decided to bring us to Cash. Now, it looks like they're also going to be extending a lot into Gym. Look at that. Some mirror windows. They really love this mirror window setup in the bathroom. They do this on the bottom floor. They're doing this in Cash. They just, as long as it's not the site, or even sometimes when it is the site, they're a fan of this.
This is an old SSG strat. When Canadian used to be on the team, Bosco would run this, and he would be the mirror tasked with holding bathroom control. Obviously, adding hot and cold gives a bit more flexibility. Newest member of Space Station has not had the greatest performance so far today. And honestly, it's falling short of the expectations that we have of him from the NA League.
I mean, that happens, though. I mean, in the last map, Dan was popping off, and he's the only player on his team without double digits. So you get some matches where you do well and some matches where you do poorly. Shepard's going to open up this wall. Always already got rid of the soft barricade, so it's just going to be the hard. And Shepard, easy job there. Fultz, he's done this before. He's done this challenge before. And he's not going to go for it this time. Dan's going to force the initiative, and he's got red control. Hot and cold's there to potentially get the refrag, but no, he's backing off and re-engaging. I'm not sure what his decision is here, but both of these players ready for each other, forcing the thought, and red is so crucial to the outcome of this round. It's going to be Dan for a second.
You speak the devil's name, the devil shall appear, Michael. You talked about it, and Dan is now coming up big. SSG are in major trouble. Rampy, though, good enough for one. Tagging on to Scyther, a second lined up around the door frame, always taking some damage from the Roni of Bosco. And a Nitro Cell goes off, but it's not early enough. Bosco falls. Rampy has so much work that needs to be done. Being tracked away, he tries to contend with the Maverick, out-dueling as he has multiple angles to cover, but Empire just breeze on in. The dream for Space Station has become a nightmare, and Thinking Nade finds himself in a 1v4. They came so close, but Thinking Nade's return to the top of the stairs gets caught, and Empire move on to the semifinals.
Absolute heartbreaker there for SSG, who brought it to the very bitter end of map number 2. But unfortunately for them, it's just map number 1 that came back to bite them, and they could not fully recover.
A lot of long faces on that Space Station bench right now as they meet up against the Russian machine, and boy, do they get left in the cold. Team Empire looking absolutely punishing. Easily one of the strongest teams at the tournament right now. For so many people, Space Station the favorite, given their performance in the NA League, given their performance across multiple international events. But they go out in the quarters, which is obviously a disappointing result from them.
Well, that was a very impressive map number 2, and for me, easily top 3 maps of the entire tournament so far, way up there. Even though SSG did end up losing, they showed us an amazing siege, and yeah, I mean, I really just wish it was a best of 5. I wanted more of that.
Well, it was a spirited effort. Even if it was a best of 5, Michael, they still would have gone down 0-2. But
I mean, yeah, but a map number 3 is still going to be fun. I want to say map number 3.
A very disappointing result for Space Station, who came in here with lofty goals and a hope of making it all the way to the end. But if this event is anything, it's unpredictable. We saw the defending world champions go out in groups. G2 also going out in groups. Another defending world champion just getting knocked out behind us, which doesn't leave many winners still standing. But Empire, they were the major kings all the way back in Raleigh, and they're looking for a repeat. They've only got 2 more games to earn themselves that trophy. That said, that's the matchup in the books. We have a desk ready to go over what you just witnessed through those 2 maps, so we'll toss to them.
All right, well, with that, Team Empire will vote Space Station Gaming out of the airlock. They were looking a little sus in those last 2 games, weren't they?
Horseman casts his vote for Spaceman, and that's going to be it.
That's it. Unfortunately, now both of our last 2 SI champions have exited the Mexico Major, so now it's all up for grabs, isn't it?
It sure is. And I mean, this game really was, I think, it started off just like I expected, right? It started off with Space Station playing like they did in groups, not amazing, weren't getting those opening picks, and Empire playing fantastic. Towards the end of Clubhouse, we got NAL Space Station. They were back on their form. They were doing everything that they used to do back in the NAL, but it wasn't enough. It was too far gone, and round 15, overtime, Empire ended up pulling it out. But I really did like that Space Station at least gave us a little bit of something at the end there, because genuinely, if we'd done this whole event without seeing Space Station play to their peak, I would have been upset.
Both games, I think, had something very similar where SSG were giving Empire way too much respect through the first half. The fact that we ended on those half results that we did is kind of enough proof to know that what SSG were trying to do was something where they didn't commit fully to the bit, so to speak. When we got to Clubhouse, they finally unlocked that other gear that we know SSG has within them. It didn't manifest itself on Kafe, and it very nearly turned into an Empire victory, but we needed to see that SSG come out 3 to 4 rounds sooner.
Look, you need them to show up more than one every 4 halves.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Come on, guys.
I mean, I hate to say it, North America, but I kind of told you so. Space Station were kind of overhyped coming into this. I mean, I do think they're a great team, but there are other really good teams here at the Major, and Empire is absolutely one of them. This was by no means going to be free for Space Station, and to the NA fans that thought it would be, sorry.
We had Joystick making a whole bunch of really early impact in the first 2 rounds of this game, and I think that definitely set SSG off kilter a little bit because he was going for great flanks. He had main stairs pressure. He was kind of everywhere in those first couple of rounds, and then it kind of falls off a bit. We don't have to rely on Joystick nearly as much, they realize, and suddenly it falls on Shepard and Scyther, who had a great game. We haven't nearly talked about him nearly as much as we have other players on Empire, and it seems like, for all intents and purposes, SSG's only real possibilities at comebacks came from a couple of clutch rounds, gives them a little bit of momentum. Their mental starts to come back like slowly but surely, but still ends up not being enough. This 1v1 in particular, we were standing right next to Rampy as he gets the final kill as Zelda and screams. Just kind of wish we could see more of it.
Yeah, and speaking of Rampy, it did feel like a lot of the sort of swings Space Station are going through are being based off of him. When we saw him struggling a little bit in the group stage, that's when SSG's troubles came. In this matchup as well, it felt like Rampy started off kind of slow, but we got to those last couple of rounds of the regular time. Rampy was going insane. He's going to be the top fragger for Space Station at 13-10. I do think he had a great game, probably the best map that he had all major long. And because of it, it was a great map for Space Station, but unfortunately, not enough.
Now this time Joystick as well, topping the scoreboard. We haven't seen that a whole lot this tournament, but particularly good on Clubhouse.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of just Joystick getting back into form of things. He was still rocking a lot of those roam clear operators, like we saw the Jackal come up from him, but I think that was really effective and was able to get him a ton of those kills, whereas, sometimes that might be a little bit harder for him to find. With the droning, the roaming that Space Station were using, it became super effective to hunt down those guys like Vigil, Mew, Mozzie, the drone deniers, and really punish Space Station's aggression.
Space Station brought out a couple of very classic strategies, I think, in those last couple of rounds, especially on both of their defenses.
We'll get to it.
Right.
You are not allowed to talk about that now.
Oh, fine. We'll get to it later.
Because I want to make sure that people are set up properly for what they're about to see before we get into round 13, because we pulled that one. So instead, let's start towards the beginning of the map, because it was a really strong, dominant early performance from Empire. And, frankly, Space Station Gaming looked off. And we could see that in round 5 with Thinking Nate, who actually did have a pretty good stat line towards the end of this game. But there were a lot of struggles that you saw beforehand. And, whether it was a little bit difficult to get some of those flashes through the walls, he did, have some issues getting his flashbangs in round 5, which is what we're going to look at. So, Jesse, you want to talk us through the strategy that was in place here and what the unfortunate events that unfolded?
Listen, this is not a great play to highlight because it's not, it doesn't paint the greatest light of Thinking Nate, but I want to highlight it because it's showcasing the fact that Space Station Gaming started off so shaky on this map. I mean, this is one of those scenarios where it's like a top player probably shouldn't be missing things like this. It's possible there was some sort of an issue in this moment with Thinking Nate, but it's even worse than this because the default cam is up on him the whole time. So Empire are watching him throw flashbangs at himself, and then he gets swung and dies at that whole moment. So it's like it's multiple issues being compounded on top of one another time and time again, and it shows the mental state that Space Station started this match in.
Thinking he'd missing all 3 of them is just a sign that for the rest of SSG, something wasn't clicking where it needed to. It's nice that he finally managed to, no, sorry, he didn't. In that run, if I remember right, it was like a 3K immediately for Empire, like right off the rip as soon as we had like a main stairs push.
Yeah.
That honestly seemed like things were going to end. I thought the potential for a 7-0 for Empire on Clubhouse was very strong once we got to that point. I mean, a 5-0 half is like, how the hell do you come back from that?
Right, and that's important because if you can't get those flashes over the walls, then you can't throw grenades over the walls, then you can't destroy those mute jammers that are stopping the walls from being opened, then you can't open the wall, then you can't push church very well, and you've got to funnel through Moto or the hallway or what have you.
It's just the fundamentals, man.
As painful as that might be for Space Station gaming fans, the second half was really thrilling. And that's why Kickstarter kept saying, I want more maps, I want more maps.
Yeah.
And I understand the perspective that Intero had for not wanting a best of 5, but it feels like finally, after 3 lackluster halves, they were starting to get into their groove, and that's why it would have been exciting to potentially have more games. So let's start by looking at round 12. They needed this round to push it into overtime, and they really delivered. Folt's got a massive 3K here. So, Jacob, you want to talk us through round 12?
Yeah, we're talking specifically about a Logi defense in this case. We're looking at both a Frost and a Jaeger trying to hold it down in different spades. But here comes the pushback from Construction. Foltz not only doesn't retreat after the first kill, he finds both Shepard coming through the same hole as Joystick and one more coming back through Logi Hatch. He holds his ground because he has a crossfire already set up there with the Frost. At that point, the only person remaining on the team is Dan, but that's where the entirety of that defense went for SSG. Previously, when they defended on CCTV, they went with the cache extension. They pushed a little bit further out, and it worked up into the last couple of seconds where Empire kind of punched through it. In this case, they kept most of their warm bodies inside logistics, waited for that construction crossover, and by the time they had anyone from Empire in position to try to kill people, that's where Foltz is a rock doing nothing but pressing mouse 1, and he wins.
Yeah, and I mean, Foltz is amazing, and I don't want to take that round away from him, but I do have to question why there was nobody from Empire maybe on the jacuzzi wall to try to put pressure on that, why there wasn't more window pressure. I believe Dan was there, but he wasn't able to actually pressure anybody. Why one of those 3 players didn't rotate through construction to push Master from that angle. It felt like that was a huge case of funneling and sort of, I guess, Empire just not really respecting the positions the Space Station had, and so that seemed unfortunate. But, I mean, if Foltz doesn't hit those shots, then I guess it's a great play.
All right, and now we can move one round further. And this is where I'm going to let you talk about what you were excited to talk about.
Yeah.
Which is, so here's the way we're going to do this. Jacob, you're going to set this up, and then Jesse, I'm going to have you run through the play and talk about the counter play. So, Jacob, why don't you describe Space Station's tendencies on Clubhouse with roamers on the top floor?
So why don't we talk about the legendary SSG roam? And if you don't know what an SSG roam is, that's what we're talking about an intel meta. We're utilizing a mute Amazi individual in lots of different aspects, but we're doing it to make sure that any intel that can be gleaned up on a top floor takes forever to get cleared out. You have the hatches open so you can quickly go for drop downs if you do get pressured quickly. That's kind of the idea. Once you waste enough time up on the top floor, as soon as you do that, you can drop as fast as possible, get back down to a church bomb site, which is what you're defending, and usually you have enough time wasted to the point that the attacking team can't properly set up for an execute.
Yeah, and if we want to actually roll the clip, I'll show you how Empire dealt with this, because it is a classic SSG hold, but there are counters. Now, typically you've got 2 on the top floor and 2 main floor. Look at Foltz, right? His job right now is to protect main stairs, because that is one of the escape routes for the top floor roamers. With him dead, that gives control of the main floor to the player, or to the side of the attack. Empire now control the main floor. They kill Rampy from below. Look at Always. He's beneath him. He's going to get that kill. Joystick is able to rotate up those main stairs, so that opening pick onto Foltz from Joystick is so impactful. Partly because it kills one of the roamers, but secondly, it forces those top roamers to stay and fight, because one of their escape routes has now been completely nullified, and they cannot have any impact in terms of running away. So they have to fight. Empire knows that. They take their top clear pretty slow after that, because they know those roamers aren't going anywhere, and once they get those kills, it's going to be a 5v2.
It usually comes down to putting a whole bunch of people on the defending team upstairs and not leaving that many people or utility down to defend in the event that the attacking team does try for an execute. So if you kill those roamers, and sometimes it's 3 players who are off-site, then you're stuck in sometimes a 5v2, a 4v2 in some cases, and it means that when the defending team tries to bring everybody back, if they can, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah, you can see Empire really prepared for what was getting thrown at them, methodical in their play, clearing it out, going top down.
They knew.
They get the execute. Easy round win for them, sets them up for that match point, which they also win. So, yeah, very, very good stuff there. And we also have a very good player to discuss, of course, which is going to be Dan, our MVP here for this series. Agreed, Joystick had a great second game, but Dan was incredibly dominant in map 1.
Maybe somebody else could have had the pick if Dan didn't also get the game-winning play on round 15. Obviously, at the very start of Kafe, he had a ton of really good plant watch going on. He was helping out his teammates in those late sort of 2v2 engagements, was hitting some really nutty shots. And I want to point out as well, round 15, Dan walks in through the breach, kills the smoke playing top red. At that point, the smoke doesn't have a shield because he put the one and only shield the defense have down inside of lobby. Dan recognized that, went for it, got the kill, and got 69 cost.
Can I get a nice in chat for the 69 cost, please?
Nice.
Thank you very much. Nice, if you would. Yeah, no, I think this is definitely deserving of Dan. We did see Joystick finally have a really good map, too, in the series where he probably wasn't the highlight reel that we've expected so far from him in the group stage. He finally got there, though. But Dan, overall in this series, absolutely deserves this MVP credit and the MMVP candidacy that comes from it later.
Yes, that's right. The MMVP will be decided at the end of the day between our 4 quarterfinals MVPs. If you are curious, it was Palu before. Who's ahead right now, Palu or Dan?
Ooh, if we're talking purely statistically, I think Palu is ahead by a little bit, but what Dan did to secure Kafe can't really be understated. He was a monster on plant protection.
Yeah, Palu was good, but I think Dan had a little bit more of an impact.
Eye test leaning you towards Dan right now. Excellent. We'll also have an L MVP, I guess. We'll rank,
Sure.
I'll have them rank the
Rank the
MVPs in
MVPs.
order for the M MVP and the L MVP.
Good, excellent. Excited for that.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. We are going to switch over into our next best of 3, our next quarterfinal, of course. So that's going to be very exciting between BDS and Furia. We're going to switch out the analysts. Thank you, gentlemen. You're done for today. I release you.
Wait, what about the death whistle?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
we
we'll
can
do that.
skip this.
Sorry,
Good
thank
catch,
you.
good catch.
Thank you. You really wanted to listen to the horrible noise again, didn't you?
Yeah, of course.
Somebody break out the near airport meme because that describes how sad I am right now.
Goodbye, Space Station.
What are we even talking about, Jacob?
What do you mean?
It's Dark Zero, the last hope of NA at the Mexico Major, just like you predicted.
Yeah, because 2 of them have COVID, and you think I have any reason to be excited about this?
Look, they've had a very good. Look, the players are okay. They've
That is
had a
true.
very good group stage so far. They've vastly exceeded expectations.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dark Zero is a really good team. I'm sure Sky's will be able to break them down and sort of how they're going to do in this bracket.
Yes.
But really, I mean, it's looking dire for Dark Zero. Space Station were the main hope.
Yeah, I don't want this to be a day where both APAC and North America get eliminated on the exact same day, but the potential now does exist. So
Might be where we're at.
Let's just hope and pray, man. Let's just hope and pray.
All right. Well, the prayers, you can save them for later. Dark Zero is not next. It's BDS coming up against Furia. We'll be back in a couple.